You got to wait for a gapper.
That is fair down the right field line. Giambi on his way to third. And they're going to wave him around. The throw misses a cutoff man. Shot into the plate. And the plate. Derek Jeter with one of the most unbelievable plays you will ever see by a shortstop.
Live from Chatterbox Sports Studios, it's Off the Bench with Tom Brenneman.
Not true again. Good morning. Pleasant good morning to you. Reed Mouse has made it safely back into the offices, I can confirm. Welcome to Off the Bench with Trace Fowler, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Stopped at United Dairy Farmers this morning because the chat was on me yesterday about thinking that this stuff is a prop, and I took that offensively. And so, yeah, I did stop at United Dairy Farmers this morning. Tom's out on vacation. I'm going to be a broken record in saying that. He is in the Dominican Republic, the DR. We speculated yesterday where he was at, confirmed he's in the DR. I imagine Tom right now just mingling around, trying to find some baseball game that's being played with bottle caps and trying to figure out a way to get in the lineup. Do you think Tom was a ball player, a good ball player at that? Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely played.
Played is yes.
Was he
I
good?
agree. Was he good? I don't know. We'll have to ask Tom.
We'll have to ask.
Tom. I don't know if he'll. Some small part of me, and again, maybe he'll crush me for saying this. Some small part of me makes me think when I think of Tom, maybe it's the broadcasting part. I think of Smalls. I think of Smalls from Sandlot, which I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. We've made it on Twitch. I don't know how many are watching on there yet, but with Tracy Jones coming on later today, we're going to find a way to get on Rumble. We'll see what his thoughts are on that. As always, you've heard this song and dance before. Please subscribe to the channel. It's free for those that don't know. Hit subscribe, turn the notification switch on, and if you prefer to join us in podcast form, please do. We're on all the major podcast networks. Just search Off the Bench with Tom Brenneman. And as he would say, you will be dialed in. The Bengals, once again, seem to be like the talk of the town. They add a couple of pieces. And, of course, the NFL is front and center once again. Lamar Jackson asking for a trade. Aaron Rodgers speculating the opportunity of possibly finalizing a trade with the New York Jets. But the Bengals, they made, like I said before, a few roster moves this week. They signed cornerback Cincinnati Jones, and just recently tight end Irv Smith Jr., the former Minnesota Viking tight end, started only 15 games in 3 seasons with Leif Erickson's bunch. Excuse me. No offense, Leif. In 2020, he had a groin strain that sidelined him for 2 different times during the season, and in 2021, Smith Jr. had a meniscus tear in his knee, which sidelined him again. And then in 2022, a finger sprain and a high ankle sprain then kept him on the sideline once more. Perhaps a new scenery in Cincinnati will give him some new fortune. I think all of Bengal fans are hoping just that. We will wait and see. Quarterback Cincinnati Jones is more of what I would call, I guess, a depth piece, it appears. Jones only started 2 games last year between the Raiders and the Seahawks. However, again, maybe Old Sweet Lou Armadillo, however you say his last name. I know how to say it, but I like saying Armadillo instead. Maybe he can pop the hood and turn Cincinnati Jones into what Eli Apple has become, a pretty good, solid player. In other news, the Ump Show, I know you've seen it. We're going to run it just in case you haven't seen it. But the Ump Show was in full force yesterday. JT Realmuto, the World Baseball Classic All-Star, the American pride of the Philadelphia Phillies, has played 1,000 Major League games, actually over 1,000 Major League games, and has never once been thrown out of a baseball game, and this is how he finds his first ejection. Run that clip, Casey.
Kimbrough says, I don't like that call. Now, here's the action right here.
And the umpire felt like Realmuto took his glove out of the way, and I think Realmuto didn't sense that the ball was on its way, so he just figured the umpire was throwing it back to the mound.
Now, on that prior exchange, the umpire threw it out to Kimbrel. So, all right, you don't feel the ball get nestled into your glove. So he wasn't even looking back at the umpire. He just pulled his glove down.
And that is how he goes out. First time. And the crazy thing is he didn't even really try to argue it all that well. I think largely because it was a spring training game and he's probably happy to get back on his merry way. Maybe he had a tee time later in the day he's going to get to earlier. But nonetheless, we'll get into that in a minute, what that means and what it could possibly mean moving forward for Major League Baseball and how they could handle those types of situations. Iowa, South Carolina, LSU, and Virginia Tech. I know you were all watching. They all punched their ticket into the women's Final Four, and people are starting to ask. I see the rumor mills on Twitter right now. Is this going to outdraw the men's Final Four? Now, I think that's a little bonkers. However, there are some storylines in the women's game. We talked about it before. Caitlin Clark is a generational talent. She truly is a generational talent in the women's game. You got South Carolina, who's been undefeated and dominant all year. If those two clash, which maybe they would, perhaps it'll outdraw the men's game. I highly doubt it. What are your thoughts on that, Paul? You're obviously a guy that's been paying attention to college basketball all year long. Do you think that there's any remote chance in hell that the men would be outdrawn by the women?
I mean, no, like literally no, because the arenas they're playing in just, I mean, they physically can't.
I think we're talking about TV.
Oh, TV numbers? No, I don't think so, especially not if it's UConn and I would say UConn and FAU. I think that would outdraw. I mean, either one of them, really. You're talking about the same kind of deal. If UConn is in the final, they will massively. I mean, UConn is a national brand. UConn, if they win the national title, will have more national titles. They'll have 5 national titles in this century. I mean, you're talking about a blue blood program if they win this title. So
there you go, using that term again, Paul. I don't know.
I mean, I think it does kind of fly under the radar how much success UConn has had in the last 20 to 25 years of college basketball, and it's been sustained success. Jim Calhoun, I mean, say what you want about Kevin Ollie. He won a title, and then now right. Dan Hurley, if he was to get this done too. So, no, the men's Final Four will significantly outdraw the women's Final Four. But as you and I have been talking about all year, Trace, there are some characters and personalities in this women's Final Four. You look at Caitlin Clark with Iowa. You look at Aaliyah Boston with South Carolina. Kim Mulkey's the head coach of LSU. I mean, there is – I'll be honest, I don't know anything about Virginia Tech. I was trying to think of something nice to say about Virginia Tech there, but I don't know a single thing about Virginia Tech except one of my friends that went there was tweeting about them last night. Don't know anything about them. But the other 3.
It's Seth Breyer's already in the chat asking UConn a blue blood. Here's my thought on the term blue blood. I think it's just a mix. It's however you want to define the term. Blue blood to me is someone that has historical presence within the game, was a part of the grassroots of the game, and then therefore was a part of the shaping of the whole entire thing. UConn, you could argue, is along the same lines of a Michigan State who has had incredible success, who's had success, comparatively speaking, to those quote-unquote blue blood programs from what we all consider the most important time of year, which is March. That's where you can kind of say, okay, there's some correlations there between the quote-unquote original blue blood programs and a UConn and a Michigan State. So I don't really get too in a tizzy about all that.
I mean, this would be their 5th title since 1999, and you're talking about them also having one of the greatest coaches of all time that really built that program. And I don't know. I think it has kind of snuck up on everyone because I think that's the discussion right now that not a lot of people are thinking about or realizing, which I don't blame you. I mean, UConn, when you think blue blood, you think Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, Indiana, UCLA, Indiana probably not so much anymore, but like you think of the bigger name programs like that. I think Villanova was on their way, but then Jay Wright retired, and now you see what happens. Are they a blue blood or are they a coach? But that's always been my argument. A blue blood program is more than just a coach, which is why I asked the question about Duke. I know they're a blue blood. Look, I'm not going to be naive here. I understand the dynamic. But there is a question to be asked about Duke. Can John Shire sustain the success that Mike Krzyzewski had forever? I mean, Same thing, Hubert Davis in North Carolina. Now, the difference is that Roy Williams was not that entire program. Duke was they were something before Krzyzewski, but
yeah, no, Krzyzewski built that entire program. Yeah.
So, but I do think that if UConn wins this title and that gives you 5 titles in the last 24 seasons, I mean that's tough to not say that you're building something sustainable throughout coaches and everything else. Also, Everett Henry was Blue Bloods on CBS, underrated. Everett Henry, I don't think I ever missed an episode of that show. Absolutely underrated show. Love that show.
Can't say I watched a single show.
But I digress. Tom Selleck.
Didn't see
Great mustache.
Didn't see a single show of Blue Bloods on CBS, so my apologies to them. I don't know if their show got canceled because of that, but I highly doubt it. Fellas, where do we start again? I know the chat is going to say we're tired of talking about the NFL, but let's be honest right now. What else is there to talk about? I know we have the Reds. We'll get into that in a minute. I'm repping the Reds because our main man in this office, Reed Mouse, has absolutely sent Reds Twitter into a complete frenzy yesterday, and he's not a well-liked man. But there are some relatively meaningful pieces that are happening right now in this league that is the NFL, the most popular league in our country by far. And it also pertains to the actual division that the Cincinnati Bengals are in, which is where many of the fandom has seated themselves inside of our chat. So Lamar Jackson has obviously put the Ravens in a situation where they don't have much of a choice, in my opinion, but to trade him. I know that there's always the hardball play, which is, hey, we're not trading you. If you want to sit out and forego millions and millions and millions of dollars, be my guest. And maybe they'll call him on his bluff. Maybe they won't. It was wild to me, and maybe this is a coincidence. I find things like this not so coincidental, personally, is that as soon as Harbaugh left and got himself into the quote-unquote reporters area and was a part of the media with the headquarter meetings going on for the NFL right now with all the head coaches, it just so happened at the same time that is when Lamar decided he was going to let everybody know that he wanted out. Is that me being too speculative, or is that me just saying Lamar Jackson at this point is just trying to be an absolute thorn in the side of the Ravens, and he's just saying, to hell with these guys, I'm done with them?
Casey, your thoughts?
Sorry.
Casey's locked and loaded.
Casey is locked and loaded on Twitch right now.
Yeah, I'm just trying to fix some buffering that's going on that side of things.
Casey, Lamar Jackson, your thoughts?
Lamar Jackson.
Do you think Lamar, I'll rephrase this really quickly since you were sleeping at the wheel over there to a certain extent, worried about Twitch buffering. Do you think Lamar Jackson did that on purpose yesterday? Or am I looking too much into that? My point is that as soon as Harbaugh came out to meet with the reporters, and his selected time is literally almost the exact identical time as to when Lamar Jackson decided he was going to drop the plethora thread of tweets saying that he wanted out.
I mean, yeah, he did it on purpose. I mean, are you saying like he did it because it's going to help his case? Is that what you're asking me?
No,
because
I'm thinking he's so spiteful. Purpose. We all get this way. If you're a competitive person, and if you play elite level athletics and or sports, you become a very competitive person by nature. I don't care who you are. And if you feel slighted by somebody, whether it's in your workplace, whether it's a friend, it doesn't matter. There's obviously a length of time where you can get over it, but there's no question in my mind where you actually have resentment. You can't stand whoever it is that you feel like is giving you some unjust business. And right now, Lamar Jackson clearly feels as if he'd done a lot for his organization. He feels like he's done a lot for Baltimore and the Ravens. And at the end of the day, he doesn't feel that love reciprocated back. So I genuinely think he, at this point, is not petty's not the right word, but I think he's going to go as far down the petty track as he could go to show his disloyalty to that franchise until he gets out of there. And one way he did it yesterday was literally dropping that news right when he knew that Harbaugh was going to have to go answer some questions.
Yeah, I mean, that's 100%. That was planned. That was calculated. That wasn't just random coincidence. I agree with you, Trace. He's going to do everything he can to get traded. But that first requires him to sign the tender. So then he would be locked in at that price at $37 million or something close to that, $38 million. And then you're probably, as the Ravens, not even going to get 2 first-rounders for him. You're probably going to get a first and a third, or maybe get lucky and get a second. But the way that this has all gone down, it's not looking great for the Ravens organization in terms of the value that they could have gotten for Lamar. In my opinion, the way things are shaping up right now, I think he's definitely not a Raven anymore. Whether he sits out the whole year or whether,
do you think he'll do that?
Yeah.
You think for sure if the Ravens decide to play hardball, no pun intended, and they say the hell with you, man, we're not trading you. Under any circumstance, we are not trading you. You are our quarterback. We feel like we're giving you a fair deal. There's no one else that has come to the table, by the way, on any of the other franchises out there to give us 2 first-rounders and sign you. So obviously they don't value that much either, if that's where you're trying to go with this. And you've been here from the start, and we believe in you. You just have to give us a chance for a fair deal. And if you don't want to do that, that's fine. We're going to use our right, and we're just going to franchise tag you. You sit out the rest of the year.
Well, at what point in the league, and this is a bigger question, but we've talked about Lamar enough, I think I can ask this question. At what point do the leagues and the teams get the leverage back from the players? Because if right now, if you're a player and you ask for a trade, you're probably getting that trade, whether it's the NBA or whether it's the NFL. A lot of these guys, they say, I want to get traded. You look at the NBA. Didn't happen to Kevin Durant. He asked for a trade. It got denied. But for the most part, the teams and the players want to be on the same page, and the teams want these players to be happy. At what point do we start to see these teams put their foot down more?
I would actually, not to right away counteract your point, but I would say that the league actually has leverage in this. That it is now starting to swing in the players' way, at least for Lamar's case.
In what way? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, just if you look at like the CBA, just what they signed for the players union. I mean, they bend over backwards every time every time they come into a meeting, it always seems like the players just don't get what they want. They always bend to the owners, and then the owners then go to the networks and get what they want from them. The owners, to me, have all the leverage. And I mean, it kind of, if you're the conspiracy type, maybe that's the reason why Lamar has not been, sought after.
Well, there was a quote, not to cut you off, Casey. Yeah. There was a quote. I can see if I can pull it up. If not, but there was a quote from Jim Irsay the other day that clearly stated,
"Money's not an issue."
I'll read it to you. He says, "For me, for the good of the game, boy, I don't believe in fully guaranteed contracts would be good for our game at all. At all," Irve said. "I've seen what it's done to other sports leagues, and I just don't think it's a positive. I line up more with the old school owners, the Rooneys, the Maras, the Hallises. Everyone has to change with the times, that sort of thing. Our game is great, and it's great for a number of reasons, but I don't think guaranteed contracts make our game greater. I think it makes it worse." That's what this all comes down to from an ownership standpoint. And to be frank with you, he's right. He's right.
Right.
Do I think that there needs to be some kind of middle ground in regards to guaranteed contracts and just being able to cut a guy completely off of a contract? Of course, there needs to be somewhat of a middle ground there. But I don't think that signing a guy like a Deshaun Watson, for instance, for $250 million, right? Is that what he got guaranteed?
Yes.
Let's just say, for instance, Deshaun Watson, and I know there's clauses in these contracts, but if Deshaun Watson blows out his knee and has a career-ending injury, it is bonkers to me to think that he automatically deserves the same amount of money as if he won 10 MVPs in a row. That none of that makes sense. That doesn't make sense in the real world. It doesn't make sense in the fake world, and it doesn't make sense in the NFL. And for whatever reason, Major League Baseball has made that to where it seems like a realistic opportunity for some of these leagues and for some of these players. And the first thing that I hear people say that aren't really aware of baseball, or they watch sports but they don't watch baseball, and you tell them about how ridiculously, hard it is to play baseball and earn money, the first thing many people say when they hear that is they said, well, I thought baseball made all the money. And the reason for that is because most people on the fringe of baseball, they don't know anything about it. They see these guys getting guaranteed contracts for $250, $300 million, the superstars of the game. They don't see the minor league guys making minimum wage for 4 months and riding a bus everywhere, right? There's discrepancies between all of these leagues, whether it's good or bad. The NFL as a product is incredibly good. And you could argue from an ownership standpoint that it's good because they don't have these things. It's good because they do have a salary cap. It's good because they don't have guaranteed contracts. And it's good because there's competitive balance in every single year, genuinely speaking. If we went through the North right now and we went to all their fan bases, now I know the Ravens are relatively down right now at this specific point, but you could make the case that every single fan base truly believes they can win the division every single year in the North. Now, they might be naive. You could say Cleveland Brown fans are beside themselves and they don't know what they're talking about, but you could make the case that they could possibly win the league. And I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer for the Reds, but I can't make a case for the Reds to win the Central every year. It's impossible. That's not realistic. And that's the main problem with Major League Baseball, if you want to get down to it. So to your point, the exact thing that you're talking about, I don't think there's a conspiracy here. They're saying it out in the middle of the open public. They don't want guaranteed contracts, and they're not going to do that.
Right.
So how do you find a way to leverage the middle of that if you're Lamar Jackson?
Yeah, I mean, for Lamar's sake, I think for him, I mean, the way that, at least if you believe everything that Lamar said, even the amount of money that was given out to him for a contract is not lining up. I mean, it's like $100 million off. A 3-year, $133 million compared to a 4-year, $250 million is really rough. I think the Ravens just really mismanaged their cap, and they just couldn't afford to give him what I think the standard is currently for a guy that's won MVP. I mean, you look at, for me, I'm looking at the perfect example of someone who got a good contract, in my opinion, that didn't really win anything is Josh Allen. And he at least got $43 million a year. And that was, I think, 3 or 4 years ago. And
Kirk Cousins had a pretty good contract.
Yeah, he had a $40 million a year contract, and he hasn't won anything. Where Lamar, he adds that special dynamic where I believe he should be at that 45, 50 million range a year. Now, the Ravens just couldn't afford that. So they lowballed him, and they wouldn't spice it up by adding more guarantees because that's just not that's not the league's MO.
Well, the other thing is we have no clue what Lamar's even asking for, which would help significantly in this situation, right? I mean, it comes down to two things, right? One is how much guaranteed money does he want, and the second thing is how many years, because if he's asking for, let's say, high guaranteed money, and he's saying, well, I'm willing to do, whatever, $30 million per year, but I want 12 years, then obviously that makes no sense. Yeah. So there's too many variables at play here for us from the outside looking in to be like, okay, we need to take a side. We need to take the ownership side of the Ravens, or we're going to take Lamar's side. But at this point, the main question that I have is from a league standpoint, and Lamar can figure out his own stuff. I don't really want to get in a situation where we're just assuming Lamar's making a mistake, because at the end of the day, too, like, these owners are greedy. Let's not act like these owners aren't greedy. Let's not act like they're the shining jewel that have always existed when it comes to player relationships, and they always quote unquote do right by the player. I'm not going to fall into one trap or the other. I will say, from just an X's and O's of like looking at it from a North Division perspective, this couldn't have possibly shaped out any better for the Bengals. You could say the Steelers, obviously, and the Browns. because not only is it a situation where it looks like they're losing their quote-unquote franchise quarterback, but it's not even a clean breakup. It's one thing from a Packers fan perspective to say, okay, we're losing Aaron Rodgers. And there's a little bit of a scuffle right now because, what do they get back? But it's a clean break. It's a clean break. You know what you got, right? You got a quarterback behind him. He's ready to play. Supposedly, we'll find out. And Aaron Rodgers is on his way out. Right now, there's no answer behind Lamar Jackson. And there's also no real answer of whether or not they're going to trade him or if they're going to bring him back. If you're a Ravens fan, you have to be wondering what in the hell is going on, because this situation didn't just come up yesterday, folks. They've been trying to figure this out for a year.
Yeah.
If you can't come to a conclusion within the amount of time that they've come with, they're not going to reach a deal.
Yeah.
It's already gone.
Yeah.
Could you imagine going in and trying to have a discussion with a significant other about something really, really important, and you can't come to grips on a deal over the course of 9 months? You're not coming to a deal.
Yeah.
You need to call the $299 divorce attorney, because that's where you're going. And that's where the Ravens are at now. The question I have is, are they going to trade him? Because he's gone. Are they going to trade him, or are they going to call him for a bluff and say, listen, if you want to sit out for a franchise tag and not make an absorbent amount of money, then go for it. I would be willing to bet that neither is off the table, because they both have egos the size of West Texas. I genuinely think there's a chance that they call Lamar's bluff. They say, we're franchise tagging you. Like it or not, sit out. Now, it wouldn't do the Ravens any good, we know, but how far will these egos take us is the question of the day.
Right. I mean, I think just on the will Lamar sit out or not, personally, I think it's a lot different than the Le'Veon Bell situation. It's a different position, different. In my opinion, it's different because of the positional value there. And Lamar sitting out for a year, in my opinion, is not as damaging as, he's only 25. I mean, when Le'Veon Bell was sitting out, 25 is the death sentence for a running back. We talk about that 27 mark, 28 mark, and you're not nearly as good as you were before. Regardless, I think he sits out. I think he will continue to sit out. And the Ravens are going to be hurting for it, because I think they're also going to, like you said, call their bluff. And it's just going to be a huge just sit and wait battle. But one thing that once we get into another scenario with Lamar, if he gets traded, I just wanted to say that you talked about Jim Irsay. He also said last night that the money was not a problem. So that's where I'm a little confused. If the money is not a problem and it's draft compensation, where do the Colts stand then? Like, that's probably their best trade destination for Lamar. Ravens would get a top 4 pick. Colts would get
that?
I don't know. That's
Is
the thing.
he worth that?
USA veteran, you can be rest assured that you can play this show. We will. It's a kid show. USA veteran.
It's a kid show.
We will not be using profanity under any circumstances. The only chance that there's ever a chance of profanity is if something absolutely crazy goes down and it actually slips up. But I've gotten so much better at that. I don't think it'll happen now. Paul Fritchner, on the other hand, I don't know. He's a problem.
I slipped yesterday.
He's a problem.
Yeah,
he's a problem.
That's what people think of me. They think problem.
Yes, they do. Big
problem
Paul. All right, moving forward. Let's talk about the Bengals really quickly. Maybe not really quickly. Maybe so. We'll see. If you're a Bengal fan right now, I know that you're going to be optimistic because that's just what fans do. But when I look at this guy and Irv Smith Jr., I'm not sure if it fulfills everything that I desire when it comes to tight end. Largely because, as I said before, your best ability is availability. He's proven in the NFL that he's not really been that type of player. However, if healthy, I do think he fits the mold. I think he answers a decent amount of questions. Does it make it now to where Irv Smith Jr. makes it to where they, for sure, at this point, aren't going to spend a high draft capital stock into a tight end?
If you want my opinion on it, I don't.
That's why I asked, Casey.
I don't think it does. I think they're setting themselves up for the best way to go BPA. I think the Bengals will draft anyone that they think is the top player at that on their board. Irv Smith is their prototypical tight end in the last couple of years. They sign a guy for a 1-year deal, and he plays well, and he gets shipped off. If Irv Smith plays well for 1 year, they probably won't re-sign him because he's going to cost too much money. He's at that 25-year-old mark. Teams will be clamoring for him if he plays well. I think he's a really good stopgap, too. Even if you do decide to get a tight end in, like, the 3rd round, you're not feeling like you're wasting a pick, or, like, in the 2nd round. You're not wasting anything there. But, yeah.
Where's Laporta mocked to go right now? Kid from Iowa.
Second round.
2nd round.
Yeah, he's like a lot of the tight ends, which, in all fairness, this probably won't happen. But there's a lot of tight ends, probably like 5 or 6, being mocked in the first 50, 60 rounds. Or, I'm sorry, picks. 50, 60 picks. And usually that just does not happen in the NFL. I know that this is a very tight end heavy class, but there's just no way there's going to be 6 different teams that don't look at this class and go, man, I really value the tight end over this corner or this edge rusher or fill in the blank, because tight end is just not it's not a valued position like some of the other positions, like receiver.
Really quickly on Draft Sharks, which I'm not sure how much stock we should put into this, because I had started digging on Irv Smith Jr.'s history of injuries. And sometimes in the NFL, you can have what we all know, like freak injuries, right? Things that more than likely aren't going to happen twice. You get guys like, and I always felt this about Matt Stafford. I didn't think Matt Stafford was injury prone. I just think he had some really bad luck there for a minute in Detroit. It wasn't like he was, again, not to jump around subject from subject, but it didn't feel like he was a Nick Senzel type to where it was a different injury every time. You just got, whether it was vertigo, then it was a guy's ankle, then it was his finger, then it was hip, and next thing you know, who knows what it is.
Yeah.
Draft Sharks have Irv Smith's injury guide as very low risk. Now, how they come up with this, I have no clue. I kind of sound like Tom with a couple of these analytical things, because I am genuinely curious as to where they come up with this. For a guy that's only played like 15 games in 3 years, they have him as very low risk. Chance of injury in 2023, 22%. Percent chance of being injured for at least 2 quarters of action. So they are basically saying there's 80%, well, not 80, but 78% chance that he is going to play all quarters of football outside of 2 for the year. His chance of injury per game is 1%.
How do you even come up with that
His
number?
durability is 5.
I mean,
5, for those that are wondering, is the most durable that you could have. Where in the hell? Hopefully that's not a bad word for the hospital. Where in the world do you come up with that?
I mean, I'm guessing it has to do with the types of injuries he sustained, that there was different.
Meniscus tear in
It
your knee?
almost feels like an insult. Like you're not athletic enough to get injured. I feel like I would be insulted. Like, I've said that. I've never broken a bone. I've never torn a tendon. I've never done anything that requires me to go to the hospital. And I wore that as a point of pride, and then now as I've gotten older, I've realized, well, maybe that was just because I was so unathletic.
Is it based off, well, how many snaps is that based off of? If it's like 200 snaps, then yeah, I could see how he doesn't get hurt. But if it's based off of 1,000 snaps in a season, then maybe that's a little off. But I'm assuming it factors in the age. He's young, so you can bounce back from stuff. And then the different types of injury, they're not like the same injury. Like if he had the same knee injury twice or 3 times in a row,
Right.
yeah, I think that would raise huge red flags. But since they were on different parts of his body, maybe that's why.
Good point. That's a fair point. Jumping over to Sidney Jones, do you feel as if that's just a depth piece? It has to be, right? Like, is he one of those guys where the Bengals see something in him, quote unquote, similar to Eli Apple when everyone else in the league was laughing about Eli Apple and thought he was the world's worst cornerback? Comes over to Cincinnati, and like him or not, Eli Apple's played well. I mean, comparatively speaking to what you pay him, comparatively speaking to what he was supposed to be, Eli Apple's outperformed what the expectation was. Now, I do laugh from time to time because he also had some really good guys behind him that maybe could cover up some things from Eli Apple from time to time. But for the most part, do you think that this is just depth, or do you think that they're going to stick him out there?
Oh, no, they're not going to stick him out there. They got Wouzier and Cam Taylor-Britt. So that's your 1 and 2, and you got Mike Hilton in the slot. I think if you're looking at your dime packages, which you're adding a 4th corner out there that maybe he gets out on the field, but I'd argue that that's a perfect spot for him. I mean, I think it's a really good replacement for Eli Apple, which that was his original role last year before Wouzier went down. Was going to be the third spot when Cam Taylor-Britt was ready to start. So I think I like the signing. I think it's a good one. I think he's got really good ball skills, kind of a ball hawk type of player, which
he's only going to be out there in passing downs.
Yeah, he's only going to be out there in passing situations, and he's only going to be facing the 3rd or 4th string receiver, more than likely. And the times that he's been on the field, yes, he's been burnt time to time because he's taking a risk. But when you're in Lou Anarumo's defense, they teach you to keep everything pretty much in front of you, and they don't really take a whole lot of risks. So maybe they like the profile there, the athleticism that he has, which he.
Is there a lot of man, anyways? If we're being honest.
Is it a lot of man?
I mean,
no. I think he plays a lot of zone.
Well, I'm just saying Lou's defense in general hasn't really shown to play like press man a lot. So even though you bring up that he's going to be playing 3rd or 4th quote unquote receivers, I don't really know if I buy into the idea of him. That's my main point. Is like it's just a depth piece, right? Like
it's just depth.
It's not as if it's a huge signing. I wouldn't read too much into it. I know some folks in the chat are talking about the NFL is tired. I get it. I've been there. I feel like I am there, if we're being quite frank. But the truth is that that's what runs the internet.
Can I
go ahead, Paulie?
I just want to say something real quick before we move on. So you guys talk about Chidobe Awuzie a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So you ever been to Bravo, the restaurant? Do you know Bravo, the restaurant?
I know Bravo, the restaurant. I don't know if I've actually been to Bravo, the restaurant.
It's where Lizzie and I went on our first date before we went and did something else, whatever.
Fun fact.
Great spot. Love this spot. My favorite dish there is the pasta woozy. No joke. Every single time we talk about Chidobe Awuzie, I sit here and I think, my God, a fettuccine Alfredo sounds really good right now. I've never been able to get it out of my mind. I don't know why. But the pasta woozy from Bravo, there is a sponsorship opportunity there for Chidobe Awuzie, and I think about it every single time we bring it up. Now I'm just sitting here waiting 2.5 hours, thinking, where can I get myself a fettuccine Alfredo?
Gina's.
Can I get it from Gina's? All right,
possibly.
Unwritten rules, unless you want to do Lamar.
No, we can jump around. Let's jump around the horn. We'll get back to NFL talk. In just a bit, because I do want to talk a little bit about not just the Aaron Rodgers situation, but then also what are our thoughts on the Steelers? Because this is one of the very few times where I feel like the Steelers have just been lurking in the background and no one's really wanting to talk about them. And I'm curious to see what your guys' thoughts on the Steelers are. But until then, let's talk about some unwritten rules of baseball really fast. We wanted to get into the idea, at least I did really quickly, on that whole ejection that had happened with Realmuto that we showed you at the beginning of this show. I don't know why we hold on to certain things in baseball for so long and just assume that we can't just change them really quickly to fix a problem. that clearly could be fixed in no time at all. Major League Baseball umpires do two things. One is, if the home plate umpire calls a swinging strike immediately, right, he will never ask for help down the baselines, ever. The second thing is yesterday, why in the world couldn't he just say, you know what? I see what happened here. I think I made a quick rational decision that doesn't make sense anymore. You could see the umpire after talking to Realmuto for every bit of whatever it was, 35 to 40 seconds. And then the manager coming out and realizing that he made a mistake. Why he couldn't just say, you know what? That's on me. You're staying. All is well. I made a mistake. I didn't realize that was what had happened. Clearly, Realmuto thought that he had thrown the ball back to the pitcher, and the umpire clearly thought that Realmuto was just playing like a do-si-do or whatever the term is, to where it's like, okay, nope, not going to take the ball, and he took offense to that. Now, if your ego's that thin in life and or your feelings are that thin in life, I would tell you to grow some thicker skin as an umpire. However, they should be able to fix that. So I wanted to go through just a list here really quickly of some unwritten rules in baseball that I think are stupid. And it's really grown up when you play baseball. This is like, it's a culture. You're taught these things, and you're taught that these things are the way they are, and you shouldn't mess with it because it's the glory of the game, and you shouldn't even consider the idea of those things being stupid. One is celebrations in baseball should be normalized at this point. We've come to realize that fans like it, players want to express themselves. I don't care if guys do bat flips that almost land in the stands. As long as you don't hit somebody or you hurt the opponent, hurting their feelings should not be a thing, right? Certainly there's some protocol. I'm not saying you should be able to, have demonstrative gestures directly at a player. But the idea that you can't do these bat flips is ridiculous. I don't know if you've seen it. Do we have the clip of the kid?
I DM'd it to you, Casey.
All right, Casey, I'll let give Casey a second to pull this up because I want to go through a quick list of these things. One is not just celebrations. The second thing is catchers being right-handed. And for whatever reason, catchers can't be left-handed. I got a little bit older. I used to always think, probably through high school, and then even when I got to college and was playing, I thought there for a minute that what is so bad about a catcher being left-handed? And when you start to think about it, it's really not that big of a deal if a catcher's left-handed. But if you've seen a catcher that is left-handed when you're playing baseball at the high school level and certainly at the collegiate level and definitely at the professional level, you immediately think Bush League. You immediately think this team is terrible that I'm getting ready to play because they have a left-handed catcher. When in reality, the only reason that anyone will give you as to why you shouldn't have a left-handed catcher is because they have to throw a guy out on third. How many times does catchers have to throw guys out on third? And I would argue that a good catcher with a good arm, just as if right-handers can pick guys off first base, catchers could throw down to third pretty quickly too. The next thing is stealing signs from second base is a crime. It's not a crime. If you can steal signs from second base, go for it. I'm not talking about signs like the Houston Astros were stealing. I'm talking about just straight up being able to see what a guy's cadence is when he puts down his signs now with the whole quote on, and I can't think of the name of it, but with the whole electronic signals now with Major League Baseball, they're going to get rid of that, so good for them. But that should have never been all that big of a deal if you're stealing signs at second base. Here's the clip from a kid that has hit a game. It wasn't even tying. It was a game-leading home run. Run the clip. This kid got thrown out of the game and suspended by the NCAA. How is that even a possibility?
Well, to be fair, I bet he got ejected, and with the ejection came a one-game suspension. I bet he wasn't suspended for that. I bet it was a hand-in-hand thing. But I know what you mean. He shouldn't have even been ejected for it.
I'm going to let that play one more time because I know that it was maybe difficult to see the first time. It's getting ready to happen right now. If you didn't see it, watch how subtle this is. I don't even know if he's really shown anyone up. He just, I mean, come on. Come on, man. Now, I know there's always one circumstance that can happen that exacerbates something that maybe isn't really that big of a problem. And I don't want to make it sound as if this is a huge issue in baseball. But these unwritten rules, they've got to start leaking out. They got to go. It needs to be fun, enjoyable. And I know the comments underneath that Twitter section where we used to handle it. We didn't need a suspension back in the day. We handled it on our own. How dumb is that? How dumb is it that we're throwing baseballs at guys because we think that they might have hurt our feelings? I mean, honestly, I was a part of that culture. I was a part of that culture that was like, you know what? You show us up, we're going to hit you. I've gotten to the point now where maybe it's just because I've gotten older and softer in my old age. I'm not that old, I don't think. But I've also would say I've gotten out of the quote-unquote cult-like mentality of this is our game, this is the way it's supposed to be played, and we have to play it this way. Like, that is so – you want to talk about tired. You want to talk about tired. I see some guys in the chat saying the NFL talk is tired. We're going to talk about the NFL a little bit more here in a minute. But that's tired.
I texted Nick Kirby about this yesterday. So there is only one player in Major League Baseball that I truly do not like, do not appreciate, and if he left the game would have no problem if he was never playing in baseball again, and that's Hunter Strickland. I cannot stand him for one reason. Back in 2014, Bryce Harper hit one of the most loud, demonstrative, incredible home runs you'll ever see. It was in the NLDS against San Francisco. Strickland gave it up. Power on power. Hit a couple of them, actually. One at Nats Park in D.C., one into McCovey Cove I think it was into McCovey Cove out in San Francisco. 2 years later, Hunter Strickland hits Bryce Harper, starts a fight, and then Michael Morse, who was a Nationals legend, his career gets ended in that fight because of what he had to go out there to do to protect his guys. Because Strickland held a grudge for 2 years to bean Bryce Harper in the back. What are we doing here, man? I mean, why? I don't understand. In no other sport do we have something like that to this extent where a pitcher can just go up there and throw a ball at 100 miles an hour at somebody. I mean, it's the dumbest thing that it's soft, it's dumb, it's infuriating. Yes, Reed, it was when he threw the helmet. I just don't understand it. It infuriates me, and I think that we are gradually starting to get to a point where I think a lot of this has become more culturally accepted, like the bat flips, like
no question.
A lot of this. And to the Realmuto thing, there was a little more context to the situation, because I originally just saw that 27-second clip that we played, and then when I saw the full clip, the pitcher, I don't remember who the pitcher was, but the pitcher was frustrated with the ball, threw the ball to the dugout, got the next ball from the umpire thrown directly to him, and then he didn't even look at that ball. He immediately threw it away, frustrated at the umpire. And then that was when the umpire was going to give the ball to Realmuto to be like, okay, I'm not even going to deal with the pitcher anymore. I'm just going to give it to you, and you can throw it to your pitcher. And then I think he thought that Realmuto was standing up for his pitcher by doing that when it was clearly not. And this is where Casey, being new to baseball, sitting here before the show, goes, why can't he just correct the mistake? Why can't he just uneject him, which is the common sense right thing to do.
Right.
And I mean, you're spot on, Casey. So I don't understand it. I don't understand it.
Well, I think that there's clearly a backstory with the umpire yesterday. That's not a one-off situation. And listen, sometimes I think that there is a line in the sand when it comes to arguing either balls and strikes. There's a line in the sand of arguing calls. I'd like to think that umpires can hold a professional standard of being able to take some heat and then also still doing their job the way that it's supposed to be done, regardless of who's yelling. But they're human beings too, so I'd like to give them some leeway. My only ask is they should be able to ask for help, and that should be normalized. A guy that checks swings and the umpire accidentally, and it's instinctive, the umpire accidentally says, yes, he went. Just like the catcher should be able to ask one of the base umpires whether or not he went or didn't go, the hitter should be able to ask, hey, I don't think I went. I know you made a quick judgment call right there, Why don't you ask? And I'm telling you right now, just based off of unwritten rules of the umpires and the way their egos are built, they will never ask and if they do ask, the base umpires know they aren't going to overturn the call because they don't want to show the home plate umpire up. It's all dumb. You know what else is dumb? The idea of bunting to break up a no-hitter is Bush League. If it's a close game and that's the way that you think you can get on base, it's in the rules. You're allowed to do it. Go ahead and bunt. That's how I feel about it. Maybe it's because I'm not a pitcher. All right. I digress. Any other things that you can think of, Paul, from an unwritten rules of baseball standpoint that are absolutely ridiculous?
I'm sure there are things that I'm forgetting right now off the top of my head. There's nothing that I'm thinking of, though.
We got a whole summer that you can probably remember it, I bet.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
The other thing is talk about sensitivity. I don't know if it's just based off the fact that Reed Mouse has built up a callus over the last, 3, 4, 5 years. I don't even know how many years it's been with working with him, to where he just doesn't bother me anymore. I get his shtick. I understand what he's doing. But, man, I didn't know Red's Twitter was as sensitive as they were. In fact, I thought that what his bit was about was relatively true. I'm not saying that I believe in it. I'm not saying that I love it. But I'm not going to sit here and act like it can't be completely wrong. But, man, they were going after my man Reed Mouse yesterday, and they were going after him hard in the paint. And you know what? He handled it well. I mean, listen, that's what Reed wants. And the fact is, it's almost hilarious seeing it all unfold in front of your eyes on social media when you know the person behind the scenes is getting exactly what they wanted. That's what he wanted, and they delivered. Do we have the clip from yesterday?
I can pull it up.
All right. For those that didn't see the show yesterday or box lunch, Reed Mouse went on a little bit of a rant for Reds fans, and that got posted on social media, and the next thing you know, Reed was getting called about everything that one could be called on Twitter. We will not tell you what the folks were saying because we want to keep this as a kid-friendly show, as we said before.
They were coming at him hard.
Really hard.
I mean, it wasn't just like, this Cubs fan. It was aggressive. Good for Reed.
It was very much aggressive. And you know what? Reed handled it fine. I'm not really worried about it. But I do think that it's one of those things where he is going to have a heck of a time if the Cubs aren't good. I'm just going to tell you right
now.
Well,
neither team is going to be good.
No. And, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're a Reds fan and you want to get back at Reed, you can say, listen, you can make fun of us all you want. We might win 60 games. Hell, we might win 50. But the Cubs aren't going to do anything either. So at the end of the day, we're both doing the same thing. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Unless you make the playoffs, it's relatively irrelevant. Now, Reed's going to argue, oh, well, listen, I can watch meaningful baseball. And maybe to a certain extent he's right. But there's heartbreak at the end of it. At the end of the story, there's still heartbreak. It's going to end the same for both of us. I digress. Do you have the clip?
Yeah, I have it.
Oh, we got it.
Go ahead and run the clip for those that didn't see Reed Mouse yesterday and his little spiel to Reds fans.
Dear Reds fans. Did you clip it? I'm proud of you guys because you guys have fully lowered your expectations to what this Reds team is. But I'm going to ask you to do one more thing. Make it a little lower. You guys know you're going to stink this year, but I don't think you really understand what that means. You're not going to win 75 ball games? No, that's competitive baseball. You ain't doing that. Everyone's taking the over on those 67 wins. No. That ain't happening. It might happen, but it'll be right there. You ain't beating it. You ain't clearing it. It'll happen in the final week. You're still going to have these conversations in June going, God, we stink. Yeah, you're terrible. Look at your projected opening day lineup. It's bad. Look at your rotation. It's bad. Look at the bullpen. It's bad. And your coach.
Our coach.
He's bad.
The coach.
I'm just telling you guys, your expectations, which were typically up here, are now here. And I'm telling you, just just go a little lower. Just keep on going down because it's going to be an awful year, and it might be an awful couple of years. Listen, I'm a big believer that what is on the front of your jersey is worth runs, can show up.
So clearly that didn't sit well with many Reds fans, and we'll see what happens.
So
go ahead, Paulie.
Is it basically just this year all you're competing for is to finish the higher win total than the Cup? Like,
absolutely.
Both teams are just competing to have a higher win total than the other.
It gives us, at least in this office, in the select few that bookmarked that tweet yesterday, which I watched that bookmark tick up little by little throughout the day. So I know what people are doing. They clearly are referencing that tweet to go back later this year, and they know, if anything, there's one thing to root for this year, and that is let's beat the Cubs in the standings, which, if we're being frank, I mean, it's possible. That is somewhat realistic. Now, Reed's not going to say that, but that is the truth. All right. You want to get in the NFL really quickly, or do you want to talk about the Major League Baseball win totals and run through those really fast? I say we save that towards the end of the show because we can discuss some of that talk with Tracy Jones, perhaps, because he might have played in a few of those stadiums that we're going to discuss. So later in the show, we'll talk about the NFL here, and then we will get into a little game we're going to play called Over-Under. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but in the betting community, shout out Betfred Sportsbook, the Sportsbook of Cincinnati. They have over-under totals on all of the Major League Baseball teams. We're going to take a guess on whether or not they will go over and or under. And then we're going to have fun guessing where their stadium ranks in the list of Major League Baseball stadiums from first to worst.
Like the video, everybody.
And like the video as we speak. Thanks for watching. So, back to the NFL. I wanted to bring up the Steelers because it's one of the few times that I feel like from a Bengals fandom of being surrounded by Bengals fans and or Twitter, it's one of the very first times I've not even heard their name even uttered remotely within this offseason. They've done nothing in this offseason outside of add a few pieces. Do you believe... This is what it all comes down to. Do you believe Kenny Pickett makes a step forward? And are you slightly concerned as Bengal fans that they're just back there lingering away with their defense and they added some defensive pieces? I don't know if you believe in them. But are you slightly concerned that no one's talking about them?
If they got
that was a major scoff.
If they got Kenny Pickett back there, Kenny Pickoff, Kenny whatever you want to call him, I ain't worried one bit. This team does not scare me. Just doesn't. Especially now that we have Orlando Brown to start blocking TJ Watt. Not scared. Not scared at all.
Who's going to play right tackle is the question of the day.
Well, they'll figure that out. We'll figure it out. But
who would you like to see play right tackle? Do you think you don't talk about a dispute? We talk about Lamar Jackson and how idiotic and crazy that's gone down. Do you think Jonah Williams is going to be playing for the Cincinnati Bengals?
I hope not.
I know you hope not, but that's not the question I asked.
Yeah.
Is he going to be playing for the Cincinnati Bengals at right tackle?
Man, if it doesn't...
Throw it up as a poll question.
Yeah.
Throw it up as a poll question. Is Jonah Williams going to be playing right tackle? Is he going to put his pride aside, realize that the best place for him perhaps more than likely is going to be Cincinnati, and there's not as many teams interested in him at a left tackle position as he once thought? Because, quite frankly, I don't know if you've seen, there was a leak from a executive in the NFL that not only didn't think that he could play left tackle, they didn't think that he could possibly play tackle at all. They thought he might be an interior lineman at best, and they were somewhat concerned about that. So, you know, Tom sat up here and scoffed at you a little bit, Casey. I don't know if you remember this, but he sat up here right in this very much seat and looked at you and laughed about the idea of you thinking that he was absolutely terrible and that you wanted to get rid of him, and you would be pleasantly surprised just to get rid of the $12 million. I think it's $12 million, right?
Yeah.
The $12 million that he is owed. And now, again, it's only one source. I don't know how the rest of the league feels. They're talking about Williams possibly just being an interior lineman.
Yeah, I mean,
I think he plays. I think he ends up being on there. And maybe they get DeJuan Jones and that all becomes a moot point, but it's no guarantee that he's going to be a guy either, or anyone else that you get that you want to start at right tackle from the draft.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, if he hasn't already been traded by the end of this week, I'm going to be at a 50-50, where right now I think it's 75% chance he doesn't play for the Bengals. Maybe give it another week after this week. If he's not gone by April 7th, so not this Friday but next Friday, I will think that he will be on the Bengals roster. I'll be right in the middle, smack dab in the middle. If he is still on the roster by the end of the draft, he's quite clearly the starter, in my opinion. But, man, I really just from the amount of research I've done and watching film, to me, it's a no-brainer on who I'm picking at 28. And I know a lot of people are like, it's got to be the tight end, it's got to be the corner, the edge rusher, this, that, or the other. I'm sticking my guns on what I saw, DeJuan Jones. The dude wins with 5 moves, and that's it. And he's just a physical presence. He just beats people. And he made Jalen Carter, who's a top 3 pick.
Go ahead.
Look
I'll
pedestrian.
let you get through this take, but I'm going to push back on this a little bit. Go ahead.
He made Jalen Carter look pedestrian. He didn't make him look special. I'm just saying there's some things in the NFL you just can't teach. You can't get better at. One of them is just being a physical presence, a dominant force. And look at what we got at left tackle. I don't care that he's going to be possibly overweight on his pro day. It's his off season. He wasn't planning on doing anything anyways because he had done what he needed to do in the combine. The dude has already set a precedent, just from the research I've done, that he never wants to be over 400 pounds again. He's already succeeded so far in that. And it's speculative that he was overweight because he didn't participate in his pro day. I think he's fine where he's at. I think he knows that he is a fringe first-round pick. To me, it's a no-brainer. I'm picking DeJuan Jones. Michael Mayer does not do it all for me. He's not the perfect prospect. Like, a lot of people are saying, like, he's going to be the next, Kelsey or Kittle. I don't think so. I think you're getting a guy that has a ceiling of a top 10 tight end, but you might get a guy that's like Drew Sample. That's his floor. That's his athletic profile. Just look at his RAS score.
I don't care about no damn RAS score, Casey. The man's a freak.
The man, I'm not denying that he played well. I mean, his film speaks for itself, but that's not translatable in the NFL. That's not always translatable in the NFL.
True Sample, that hurts my heart.
I'm not saying he's going to be Drew Sample. I'm saying his basement,
Kick me while I'm down,
his
Casey.
floor is Drew Sample, and his ceiling is a top 10 tight end. That is what I'm saying.
Too big of a range for you is what you're saying.
Yeah, he's not a sound prospect. Where DeJuan Jones' flaws are, I feel like I can overlook them because of how dominant he is in other places. Michael Mayer is not dominant in one thing or the other. Whereas like Darnell Washington, he is dominant at blocking. I might rather have him now that we have Irv Smith because I know that he's going to help me right away. Where Michael Mayer, he might not help me right away. That's just my thoughts on it. My quick overview, my hot take, I guess. I don't think it's much of a hot take. If you go look up the film for yourself of DeJuan Jones and you come back telling me that dude is not a stud, then there's something wrong. We got to have a talk because he literally takes 270-pound men, throws them to the ground, and just belly flops on them every single time. He is just a force. I love it. I love watching him play.
Casey,
I'm fired up just thinking about it.
I'm starting to wonder if Tom's biases, which clearly exist with the Ohio State Buckeyes, most of us come to realize this, and that's okay. That's fine. I don't think there's any problem with having some biases. I'm wondering if it's a little bit like the plague, where it's slowly drifting itself over towards the mixer. It's got itself past the mixer. It's on the computer screen, and then all of a sudden now it's just all over Casey's glasses, and he just sees nothing but Buckeyes all over his dreams. He's thinking DeJuan Jones is going to be the next Anthony Munoz over there. I mean, let's slow down a little bit and not act like perhaps he didn't hold on a few plays when Jalen Carter was in there. Because the truth is that there was a lot of holding going on in that football game, and they didn't call any of it. And I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying we can't sit here and act like he made Jalen Carter pedestrian. That's an absurd thing to say. It's an absurd thing to say. But, hey, power's yours. If you want to sit here and act like that Michael Mayer is overrated, go for it. I don't know if I'm going to go to that extent yet. I am with you, though, that the Bengals – here's where my thought is with the Bengals. If they decide to draft an offensive lineman, obviously a tackle, in the first round, there's so much pressure on them, in my opinion, to not miss on it.
I agree.
If they draft a quote-unquote tight end and they were to somewhat miss on the tight end, I don't know if they get as much heat. Now, whether that matters or not, I don't know. I don't think it should matter. But from a public perception standpoint with the Cincinnati Bengals, if they draft a tight end, it's the safer pick because I don't know if there's as much animosity that would come from that position as the other position, which is the tackle.
I mean, there was a guy named Drew Sample. I mean, the fans hated that.
But the fans right now aren't talking about how tight ends is a huge position of need and why they need to fill it, and they're concerned about it. All you've heard about for the last 2 or 3 seasons is how in the world are they going to protect Joe Burrow. That's what this ultimately comes down to. So if you're going to draft somebody that's in charge of protecting said Joe Burrow, it is going to come with higher scrutiny than drafting someone that Joe Burrow's throwing the football to.
Yeah.
Whether they're good or bad or indifferent.
I can get behind that. Yeah.
God, Reed.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm going to address one thing from H.A. Worst really quick.
Personal statement from the desk of Casey McAllister.
I cannot sit here and tell you that Mayer is an elite tight end prospect. He is a good prospect.
Casey, he was the best tight end in Notre Dame history from a school that is considered tight end U.
I know, but everything, if you watch the film, he's just good at everything, okay? He's not elite at one thing. Usually these guys that do well at the tight end position are elite at something. He's not elite at anything. He's just good, and that doesn't usually translate well in the NFL.
Okay.
That's my one shtick. That's my problem. That's my one thing about the tight end spot that I'm like, I don't know if he's my number one tight end.
He's too well-rounded for you.
And maybe that ends up doing well. But for me, I'm looking at like Kincaid, who is like an elite like catcher. He runs routes really well. He can high point the ball really well. And I know he's not the prototypical size, but to me, he's elite at that.
Got it.
At the college level.
Okay.
That's my one thing about him.
All right.
But
is Laporta even being discussed at all in Bengal circles?
Is that the Iowa kid?
Yes. I'm telling you, I like him. I've watched games of him. Listen, he played for a team that was absolutely atrocious. He had a guy like Casey McAllister trying to throw him the football. I mean, I'm being serious. If you take Sam Laporta and you put him in said system, Utah, maybe Notre Dame, certainly Georgia, he's instantly, in my opinion, a much, much highly regarded prospect because he, quote unquote, he looks better on film because he has the opportunity to look good.
Yeah, I like him a lot.
What is he mocked at right now?
He's mocked in the second round.
Okay, so he's up there too then.
Yeah, I like Laporta too, which is why why I'm so high on DeJuan Jones is because I feel like I can get a guy relatively not as maybe highly touted as Mayer, but you're not getting something that's like so much worse than Mayer at Laporta. Like, he's right there to me. He might not have the blocking skills, but he's definitely able to get open, and he runs routes really well. And then he's the best in college football currently at the tight end position at breaking tackles and yards after contact. So that's another thing that you got to consider.
Is Laporta even an option with the Bengals' second pick?
It's tough. I mean, there's a lot of mocks that have these tight ends going super early. I just don't see that, though. I think there's a chance that Laporta's there at 60. But that's really getting into the weeds of, you know, we're starting to get into the first, second, third round picks for Bengals here, and that's just really tough to gauge, honestly, in these drafts. The draft day, usually there's a lot of surprises, a lot of guys that are, I mean, just last year there was a couple guys that I was just like, what the hell? Especially, sorry for saying hell. I don't know if that's the curse word that we're not supposed to use for
go ahead.
USA veteran.
Go ahead.
But like the
Patriots last year you had the Patriots selected. Who I don't even remember the guy's name, but nonetheless, the Rams. Sean McVay was literally laughing out loud because he was at a press conference. I don't know. In fact, let's not that you need to pull that clip up right this exact second, but please find that. That's one of the all-time great moments in the NFL draft history. Is Sean McVay finding out that the Patriots had drafted whoever they had drafted. I don't remember the kid's name. But nonetheless, I think they had him mocked, I believe, in like the 5th or 6th round on their draft board. And he went in the 1st round, I believe, with the Patriots. But
can we talk for a second about how this is going to sound – just bear with me here.
God, we're going to bear.
Bear with me. How easy it has to be somebody that does NFL mock drafts.
Are you saying that
professionally?
Are you saying?
I'm not talking about scouting players. I'm talking about the fact that as I'm sitting here thinking about this and reading through mock drafts, they're legitimately the NFL's weathermen.
Are you saying Mel Kiper is worthless?
I'm not saying he's worthless because he brings value in his evaluations of players. But if you get like 2 players right on your 1st round mock, you're gold. And we sit here and treat these mock drafts like gold. Well, where is this guy going? Where's this guy going? And I'm sitting here thinking to myself,
we are getting ready to start back up, and we should be good.
They didn't want to hear my mock draft take.
Yeah, your mock draft.
I've been silenced.
Your mock draft take broke the internet.
Yeah, I've been silenced.
Yeah.
Here's the clip.
But let me tease this clip again for those that obviously didn't get to hear this beforehand. So this is Sean McVay learning at a press conference of who the Patriots drafted. This is an all-time moment for me in regards to draft. I don't want to say history, but this is just such a beautiful thing that you very rarely get to see, which is a candid reaction to another organization's decision with Sean McVay. Go ahead and run the clip with the audio.
Really? Just win. Oh, my UT Chattanooga to the 1st round. Hey, where is...
How about that? And we wasted our time watching him thinking he'd be at 104 maybe.
Really?
Did you imagine? First of all, how do you feel if you're the kid? And second of all, if you are the Patriots and you see that, how like it or not, how spiteful are you? I mean, you have to be pretty upset about that, right?
I would be. I mean, especially if you're like considered one of the greatest coaches / I mean, Belichick's pretty much a GM of all time. And a team that just recently won the Super Bowl, right? That was last year, right?
Yeah.
Didn't they
just last year? Well, they won the Super Bowl. They were on a Super Bowl high.
Yeah. I don't know. I would be upset. I don't know if he did that bad either, though, in New England. I think he actually performed well. Could be wrong. I'll look it up, but
like the video, everybody.
Yeah. The video, share.
Does Sean McVay stick around for much longer?
I don't think he does.
Me neither. I think he's in a position where he probably sees the writing on the wall to a certain extent within that organization. I think he's holding out hope that his quarterback can stay healthy and maybe they can make one more ride into the sun. Highly doubt it. However, when these networks start calling, which they inevitably will with a guy like Sean McVay for numerous reasons. One, his recall, which has been relatively impressive throughout the years on being able to remember specific things from specific plays, are going to immediately, whether we don't like him or like him, I know most of us don't, they immediately are going to draw comparisons to Tony Romo and how he can dissect a game and be able to assume what's going to happen and be able to have incredible recollection of specific things that happen within the league. But more importantly, the amount of money that they're paying these guys to be on these TV networks has to come into the back of the minds of guys like Sean McVay because, one, I would assume that the lifestyle is incredibly easier, right? And if you're getting paid the same, if not more, and you're looking at your quote-unquote future at that franchise, Sean McVay has to be asking the question of whether or not he wants to continue to the grind.
Yeah, I mean, with how bare bones the team is as of right now, when you really only have Aaron Donald on defense and Matthew Stafford at quarterback. It's, well, you got Cooper Kupp too, but, man, I mean, you got no draft picks. That's tough. I mean, I thought they would have gotten Jalen Ramsey, like a first-rounder out of Jalen Ramsey again, but I can't remember what it was, but it definitely wasn't a first-rounder. I was really surprised about that they couldn't get a first-round pick out of that. And just because of that, I think the Rams probably have a losing season this year. And
sayonara.
Yeah, and then he's gone.
One Nation Underground says that he's talking about the Bengals line, says some lines are deeper than others. We're bottom tier in the depth-wise. Well, obviously, because the Bengals haven't drafted well at that position. That's genuinely what it's going to take to have depth at the offensive line. How many times are you going to be able to sign somebody that is a relatively worthwhile free agent? One, pay them what they think they're worth, and then two, they're not going to start, right? Like, in order to build depth from a line perspective, Jackson Carman needs to be a solid player.
Yeah.
You draft DeJuan Jones, he's a solid player. Maybe Jonah Williams stays, and you say, okay, if said DeJuan Jones get hurt, then we got Jonah Williams, which one could argue whether or not Jonah Williams is a relatively reliable backup in the first place. And right now, based off the last time I looked at the poll, 47% of the poll thinks that Jonah Williams is going to be playing for the Bengals in 2023. So whether that's as a backup or whether that's as a starter is left to be determined. But I think the Bengals have done about as much as they possibly could have to try to shore up that offensive line. You can't say it hasn't been for a lack of trying. They went out and got Collins last year. They went out and got Kappa. They went out and got, give me the other name, Volson. Was it Volson or did they draft Volson?
They drafted Volson.
Collins. And Kappa, right?
Karras.
So when you go out in the free market and you sign guys, they're going to expect to start. So in order to get depth, you're going to have to draft relatively well. And I don't know why. For an organization that has drafted pretty damn well, I don't know what it is, but they've swung and missed at that position, it seems like. Or, this is the take that I might start to be leaning on, or is it a situation where you're expecting too much of guys too soon? To where there's not enough depth there, and you're just rushing them to the big leagues, if we want to call it that. And they're playing in incredibly meaningful games, and they're just not performing at the level in which one would expect them to because they're too young. I'm not all out on Jackson Carman, if we're being quite frank. I thought the 2 games that he played at the end of the year last year were noteworthy. Like they were something that you could start to build a little bit of confidence on. And just because this team is so damn good and it's so important to keep Joe Burrow healthy, you automatically don't want to assume that these guys can slowly progress and get better. You don't even want to take the chance on that, which I could understand. But I think it's also reasonable to expect that if Jackson Carman didn't play at all, right, and sat behind guys for quote-unquote 2 years. And let's just throw out the hypothetical. Now, I know this isn't realistic, but let's just throw out the hypothetical that Jackson Carman's only 2 games that he played were an emergency role last year in the last 2 games of the season.
We're coming back.
Yeah, we should be back.
All right. But I don't know. When did we cut out, Casey?
We cut out right before you asked me the question. The last question, which was...
So the question essentially was whether or not the perception of Jackson Carman, I know the answer, and I think you know the answer too, but my main point is if Jackson Carman, to get back to the point here before our internet started struggling, and I think after we get through this point, we are going to do an ad read with Encore because maybe that's where the karma lies in this whole thing. Perhaps that's the real problem is, well, we're going to hand the keys over to Paul Fritchner, or I'll take care of it.
Oh, all right.
But I'm going to ask the question to Casey first. If Jackson Carman wasn't rushed to the big leagues, and that's the only thing that I can keep on think of saying, if he wasn't rushed to be a starter, or he wasn't someone that we come to expect to be able to protect Joe Burrow, who is, quote-unquote, without question, the most prized possession in Cincinnati sports at the moment, and he had the opportunity to develop and get better behind guys that were, quote-unquote, doing the job, and the only thing that you've seen of Jackson Carman was the last 2 games last year, the perception of him would be what, Casey?
Very good. Very high. That would be the solution. We wouldn't be sitting here talking about Jonah Williams. We'd be sitting here talking about Jackson Carman being the right tackle of the future. And I know that for a fact because teams do that all year, all the time, especially at the lineman position because it's just so hard to find starters. Other teams manage to, like the Dallas Cowboys, are very good at drafting guys, letting them develop, and then starting them as their older guys either get hurt or they move on. I think guys or other teams like, as of late, the Eagles have been like that. They've been very, very good at drafting guys, getting guys to develop, and then moving on from said guys. I think the Chiefs did a really good job of that. Some of their guys actually started right away, but they were able to find the talent and, make it work. Part of the reason I think Jackson Carman struggled a lot is because his forte was never really pass blocking to begin with, and that is just something that we do 75% of the time with Joe Burrow. I think if he was in an offense that was much more balanced, he would be probably looked at even better than what he is currently. But, I think, like you said, the perception would be a lot better if those were the only 2 games we had to go off of. And on top of that, Trace, he was a guard at first. He wasn't a tackle. Right. I mean, he joined the league as a guard, so he didn't even really have time to sit behind a tackle. He was sitting behind a guard, and we know how bad our guards have been.
Right.
So
yeah, and I'm not here to say that I think that Jackson Carman was dealt a horrible hand, and I'm not here to say that I think Jackson Carman is going to be an elite type of player at any of the tackle positions. But I'm also skeptical of the idea that he automatically is not a guy that can be worthwhile. Before our stream buffers again and karma ensues, the Bengals Report is brought to you by Encore Technologies. Encore Technologies provide IT solutions for a data-centered world and a suite of services from mobile computing to desktop to data center, supporting both centralized and work-from-home computing models to improve efficiency and
productivity.
Visit encore.tech. The path to innovation begins there. As a special thank you to Encore. And you know what else we have here? While we're doing our ad reads, we have Pawnee Water. And I'm actually meeting with Pawnee later today to talk about this great water. You've heard us talk about Pawnee Water before. But there's a new premium alkaline water, Pawnee. And I have to tell you, this stuff tastes great. Made in Hamilton, Ohio, Pawnee uses natural limestone filtration. Unlike the artificial processing that many other brands use, the results, well, it's a healthy, alkaline water that is also the best tasting water in the world. Visit their website, pahniwater.com. That's PAHHNI water.com to see where you can buy this great tasting water. Hopefully we can figure out a way to get some Pawnee water, I don't know, in some more stores. But to finish out my point here really quickly with the Bengals and their tackle positions is I think that whenever you're rushed to a position of importance and whenever you're supposed to be the quote-unquote saving grace of an organization, and I'm not saying that was Jackson Carman's situation, but to a certain extent it is, when you get stuck on the offensive line of quote-unquote the franchise quarterback and he's getting sacked 6, 7, 8 times a game, the first people that are going to become to blame whether he gets injured and or whether or not the team struggles, whether it's fair or not, is going to be the offensive line. And I'm just not sure that's a fair thing to ask of a guy coming directly into the league, when if he would have just been able to sit behind some guys for a few years and come into a fresh situation, which Jackson Carman still can, I think the results might be different. Well, it is almost that time, and we might as well make it that time. Tom calls it the best 30 minutes of television. Sometimes that's to be debated. Sometimes it's not. Maybe it's because of Tom. Maybe it's because of Tracy Jones. Tracy, I don't know if you've ever heard of Rumble, but I was led on to Rumble a few weeks ago by somebody telling me, hey, you should just throw it on Rumble, see if it gets some traction. And I've come to find out that Rumble seems to be a place in where people submit content for one specific leaning of politics. And I had mentioned Rumble, and the first thing in my chat was Tracy Jones. Do you know
How about that?
Do you know what Rumble is, Tracy?
It's for the conservative viewpoint. That was something that kind of offset Twitter, if I'm not mistaken. You know, remember when Twitter was that bunch of libertards, and you know they had their spin on things, and then they took all the conservatives off Twitter, and then the great Elon Musk bought Twitter for $44 billion, now worth $1 billion. So you talk about a great American. Thank Elon Musk. But yes, I'm very familiar with Rumble. My wife, who is a big-time conservative, she belongs to Rumble, and she's on Rumble all the time. Speaking of that, I apologize for it being so dark, but this is my bedroom.
Oh, yeah?
I'm actually broadcasting from my bedroom. You know how they say on MTV, you know,
it's a
that's
nice
where
ceiling
the
fan, Tracy.
Do what?
It's a nice ceiling fan.
You know how they say on MTV, you ever see MTV Cribs? They say that's where the magic happens?
Yes.
No magic. No magic is happening there. No. If it had to be rated, it would be G-rated. Because nothing is going on in that after 12 years of marriage.
Do you even sleep in that bed, Tracy?
I do. It's very comfortable. I have a Cow King. The thread count is 1,500. And I sleep in silk pajamas. So, yes, I do. It's very comfortable. I get a good night's sleep every night.
Good for you, Tracy. I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
This is a relatively, I don't want to say super serious question, but when you look at situations to where we were just talking about the idea of being quote unquote rushed to what I was calling the big leagues for some of these tackles, and they get drafted, and the next thing you know, they're responsible for protecting Joe Burrow. And you look at the Reds, which opening day is a few days, short days away. And I don't know how much excitement there is down there, but I'd like to believe, and being somewhat optimistic, that there's still a sliver of excitement with Reds opening day. Do you think that there's any truth and or identity with the idea of guys being quote-unquote rushed to the big leagues, or is that just a quote-unquote myth? Is there any reason for concern that the Ellie De La Cruz of the world, the Matt McClains, just because the big league club is so bad that everyone's looking for a saving grace, could that really weigh on a guy, or is that just kind of, I don't want to say a myth, but maybe that's the term to use? Oh, man, Tracy Jones' internet in his bedroom, it might not be as good as we think.
Are we having trouble, technical problems?
Maybe. I think so. We got you for now. We got you for now.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I think sometimes it's overrated as far as having a guy in the minors and staying down there for a long time. I mean, if he's ready, you got the scouts watching. If a guy can play in the big leagues. Trace, what they used to say, if you can play and hit in Double-A, you can play in the big leagues. So I think some organizations have no problem bringing players up, right? But the Reds do, because I don't think they want them on the clock. There's more time that, they could spend the minors and not in the big club, and then they come to arbitration a little bit later. So I think that's a concern for the Reds, right? You don't want to have, guys getting paid big time money when they're really, they could push them off another half year. I mean, what's a half a year going to mean, or a year for the Cincinnati Reds? I mean, nothing's going to happen this year, and we'll see what happens. But I will say this on a good, people are going to have to be patient. So when you guys go to the game, or you watch it on TV or listen on the radio, you're going to have to be patient. Think about Tracy Jones, what Tracy Jones says. Patience is a virtue. There's help on the way. I saw an article the other day where they're the 5th ranked farm system in all of baseball. And that's a big deal. I've never seen the Reds ranked that high since the 80s, right? Can you guys think of a time where they've had an organization, minor league, ranked that high? You have to go back to the 80s. And some of the players that played in the minor leagues in the 80s, right? You had a guy like Barry Larkin, Eric Davis, a Tracy Jones, a Cal Daniels, a Paul O'Neill, myself, Kurt Stillwell, Norm Charlton, myself, a lot of players back in the 80s, and you saw what happened. They won the World Series in 1990.
Oh, Tracy. Tracy, were you a part of that group that came up?
I didn't mention my name? Yes, I was.
Yeah.
Actually,
well, your internet is about as reliable as you being in a certain city throughout your MLB career. How about that?
You know who I need? I need Encore Technologies to come to my place, and I need the Elon Musk of the Midwest, John Burns, to fix it for me, because we definitely have a problem. I mean, as soon as I venture out and go in a different direction, everything breaks loose. So I apologize. And you know what I'm going to do? From now on, I'm going to broadcast from my balcony. That's what I'm going to do. Would you guys like that?
Yeah, the weather's turning too, Tracy. I mean, we're starting to get there. This is that part of the season where, you for the last 2 or 3 months, at least for me, when you live in Cincinnati, you start to question, why am I deciding, of all the places in the world, that this is where I decide I want to live? Doesn't take anything away from Cincinnati. I love Cincinnati. But from time to time, when the weather gets the way it gets, you do question what you're actually doing. But we're starting to enter that period of time to where that weather's changing, and you start to realize again why you are where you are.
Well, and that's why it's really important that you have 3 different houses that you can go to during the winter time. Like I have a place down in Florida, I have a place in California, and I have a place here in Kentucky. So I think that's really important. And the 2 ham and eggers over there, they'll never get a chance to have 3. You guys just need to move out of your apartment. That would be a starting point. But I am going to broadcast on my balcony so you guys can understand how the 1%ers live, right? Because it's a very great view of the city. So I'm going to do that on Thursday, if you guys don't mind.
Well, you mentioned 3 houses. Many of us at Chatterbox are just trying to get to 3 bedrooms, to be quite frank. I mean, I don't know.
That was funny. That's funny.
Well, where are you on the spectrum of things to do in Cincinnati? I don't know. Maybe this is too hard of a question to ask you right off the top of your head. But you have many people that claim this is the best thing about Cincinnati, or this is the best thing about our region or our area. You're a well-traveled man. You've been around the block, if you will. What would you say if you wanted to give a positive viewpoint of our region? What would be the number one thing you'd tell somebody that was said from Texas or California?
I think it's a great place to raise a family, as everyone knows. I think it's extremely inexpensive. If you want to get ahead in life, I talked to some people, my clients in California, they can never get ahead because everything's so expensive. When I live here in Kentucky, the prices, everything is reasonable. They don't gouge you. I mean, I went to California the other day to the doctors, and it was $25 to park. I mean, really? $25 to park to go to a doctor's appointment. So, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that you experience. But as far as Kentucky, that area, Ohio, even Indiana, I really like it. And the more time I spend here, Trace, I like it more. I like the people. And you know what? Believe it or not, people like me.
Well, I know one thing that is to be true, and that is to be debated, what you just said. I know that there are a select demographic of people that probably do not like Tracy Jones one iota, and I would just say to them, if they don't understand the humor and the nuances that come with Tracy Jones, I feel sorry for them because there's a lot of humor in life that they're probably missing. What is
people need to
go ahead.
Relax.
What's
people need to just
shut up. You talk.
No, I was going to tell you what I had a life experience this weekend going to you know where the Bellevue Vets is, right? And down below is a new. Well, you're not missing anything. You really not. It's kind of like the brass ass, but without the girls dancing.
Okay, got it pictured.
There's a baseball field that's been redone. It's a pretty nice field. So occasionally I'll go down and check out the kids playing.
Right.
And it's very interesting to watch a game. And I think the kids were like 14, 15, a select team. Both were pretty good teams, but it got real ugly. And it got ugly because the umpire was terrible. And the fans started taking shots on both sides, taking shots at the umpire and arguing with the umpire. And they almost called the game. My point is, I hear it all the time when I used to do talk show on WLW. Parents just need to watch and to shut up. It is real tough to watch a game that your kid is playing and the kid's getting screwed over. Whether it's a strike that almost hits the dirt or one that, right down the Drano and the umpire calls it a ball or he's safe or he's not. It's really tough as a parent to watch a game like that when an umpire is so poor. It really took away from the game because both teams were pretty good. And I just thought it was sad that this umpire kind of took over the game instead of just letting the kids go and play the game.
That's a great point you bring up, and I have a situation that was dawned on me the other day. My son's getting to the age where baseball is of relative importance. He's 10 years old. I don't really push it on him, but you're getting to the age where there's a little separation between talent, right? You start to see You start to see kids that probably are going to play a little bit longer than others. Certainly still is not in the time frame to where I'm going to forecast these guys are going to play college or professional baseball or not. But they had a situation. I want to know how you would handle this. Now, I did my best to bite my tongue. I've decided from here moving forward, once I tell you this situation, that I'm just going to sit in my car and let my son go enjoy his practice, and whatever happens, happens. I'm going to let it be because I don't want to, one, embarrass myself, embarrass my kid, and or have any issues with the coach. But they were playing 6 outs, which if you're relatively familiar with baseball, you split your team up in inter squad, they go out, kids hit in a row, you get 6 outs, they clear the bases after 3, and then you switch every 6 outs and you hit as an inter squad. The coach, however, decided that they were only going to get 2 strikes is what he had said to start, which is fine. They're trying to keep it moving, Tracy, be a little bit of aggressive. Well, it turns out that he's calling everything a strike. And when I mean everything, I mean essentially pitches that were hitting home plate, and then also a foul ball. If you fouled off the second pitch, you were out. So I'm watching, and I honestly don't really care a whole lot. I'm not like a helicopter dad. I'm being dead serious when I say this. But my son takes the first pitch. It hits the plate. He calls it a strike. Okay, whatever. The next pitch is a little outside. My son fouls it off. Well, he's out. And I could tell he got a little disgruntled, so I just said to him out, not yelling, but I said out loud to him, Tracy, from behind the bench there. I said, hey, that's a good at bat. You got to swing at strikes. You got to swing at strikes. And I almost thought to myself, I think I might have said something I shouldn't have said. Did I overstep my bounds, Tracy?
No. And see, this is a great topic because it's easy, Trace. You want to just keep your mouth shut, not say anything. But when your kid steps up to the plate, you don't want him screwed over, right? And that was a perfect example. What did your kid learn? I mean, ball hits the plate, he calls it a strike, and he fouls one off, and he's done. So what does he have to do? Go out and sit on the field and play with dandelions for the next, half hour till he gets another at bat? it's really easy and you have great intentions. But when you can say anything to me that you want. I really don't care. You could say you're a jerk, you're an egomaniac, you're a great baseball player. You're a great baseball player. You could say whatever you want to me. You say something about my kid, I'll knock you out. I mean, you say something about Hunter, it's just game on. You cannot talk bad about my kid. And so you're defending your kid. Your kid, it's frustrating. I don't know what the answer is because it's tough. What they do in California, this is the old California thing. I don't know if you, in soccer, and of course it's soccer, the parents are not allowed to say a word. If they not cheer, nothing. And if they do say something, they're asked to leave the park. Could you go for something like that?
No, because most of the time when I'm watching my kid play, I mostly just want them to play the way in which I feel like they should play the game. And that's mostly just play hard, right? I'm not really all that concerned about whether they make a mistake or that, this, the other. But the only time I've ever actually been really upset at my son is when he decided that he was just going to walk off the field one time. Great. I made 2 diving plays and I got 3 hits, and they asked if we won. I said no. So I was then scolded by my parents, which at the time, to be frank, didn't feel like that was very fair.
Well, my dad used to say, show me a good loser, I'll show you a loser. I could come home with Fs or Ds, which never happened. I think I got a B+ one time. But I'm just saying, my brother and sister, they were stupid. They got Ds and Fs. There would not be a problem with that. But you go 0 for 4 in a game, we got a big issue at home. I mean, it's game on. My dad's just pounding away about, not getting your elbow up or something like that. Sure. And it was a big deal. And just if you're going to have a kid, Trace, this is yours, push too hard. And if you do push, then your wife has to be, it's kind of a Mutt and Jeff. Someone has to be the Jeff. Someone has to be, yeah, you really do, because in my family, it was my mom was a great player. She was an athlete. My dad played professionally. My brother played professionally, made it to AAA. My other brother made it to AA. We've had 7 people in my family. My brother broke a lot of Tony Gwynn's record. 7 people play professional baseball. So that was a very important part of our family. But someone's got to be, the nice person, because if not, the kid won't play.
Well, that's the scary part when it comes to athletics more times than not, is just the fact that genetics play a large role in whether or not you're going to have sustained success in said athletics for a long period of time. And that's been proven for quite some time. Tony Gwynn. You brought his name up.
Yes, I know Tony.
I seen this just the other day. Tony Gwynn is the all-time leading assist man at San Diego State.
Well, I knew Tony Gwynn quite well. I played against him a lot at San Diego State. He was not the top player on the team. The top player was a guy named Bobby Meacham, who was a shortstop, went the 8th player picked by the Yankees. He made it to the big leagues, but wasn't that good. Tony was just all right in college. Tracy,
and I'm talking about basketball too, by the way, just to be clear.
That's right. He did play very good. He did play basketball. I forget.
I mean, that's pretty damn good athleticism, if we're being frank.
No, and if you look at that body, you're thinking, how in the hell did he play basketball?
Yeah.
But his brother, Chris, was a very good ball player at San Diego State. And I think he was a basketball player. So genes play an important part in being an athlete. I mean, look at Casey. I mean, that poor bastard. Do you really think there's going to be an athlete come from that guy? Casey?
Well, it won't be from me. It'll be from my fiance, my future wife. She was a D3 soccer athlete, believe it or not.
Do you think, Tracy? Do you think that Alex is ever possibly watched Casey perform any athletic feat and thought to herself, I wish I would have thought through this a little bit longer. My athletic kids might have stood a chance.
Yeah, I mean, Casey? What are you good at as far as sports? Beer pong, or something like that? Darts.
I'm pretty good at beer pong.
Yeah.
I'll throw a couple darts here and there. I grew up playing some football though. I didn't last very long because, not much of an athlete here, but.
That's all right. Tracy, I have a question. We're going to end this show with over-unders on every single Major League team, but we're going to make a guess on where their stadium is ranked. I know I've asked this question to you before, and you like the you like the Astrodome in Houston, I believe, was the last time we had talked about this.
Check the
How many of the Alex has already confirmed that she is she's already confirmed that Casey, we already knew this, that Casey's probably not the most athletic guy of the bunch. But you know what? We won't beat Casey down too bad. Let me get to my question, Tracy. Have you been to many Major League ballparks of recent? And secondly, there is this, I don't want to say rumor, maybe it's a myth, maybe you could put it to bed, or maybe you can confirm it. Does Major League Baseball give you a card that allows you to go into any stadium that you wish and watch a ball game? Is that a real thing or not?
Boy, that question really hurts.
Oh,
and I'll tell you why. It's a great question. Here's the deal. That is true, Trace, but you have to have 8 years in the big leagues. I had 6. So I did not get my card. Now, I got something from Major League Baseball where I can call the person at a certain organization. They give you a name, and they will give you 2 tickets. But as far as that card, that Major League Baseball card, you have to play 8 years in the big leagues, and I came up a little short.
Well,
sore subject.
The good news is, Tracy, if you want me to spin it in a positive fashion, is that that's for the folks that can't manage their money when they end up becoming broke after their playing days, right? You, on the other hand, a guy of financial wizardry, doesn't even need that card because you can go to any game you want. You just buy the tickets yourself. Is that fair?
I sit in the diamond seats. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I don't know how you actually sit in the outfield. I mean, I don't know how you sit with the Norwoodians out there, on the top tier back when they used to have the red seats. Yeah, I can if I want to go to a ball game, I can afford. And you want to sit with people that you're familiar with, right? You don't want to sit with a bunch of ham and eggers. Right. You want to sit with people that you can talk about the stock market or things like that. I mean, if you're sitting in the outfield, they're not talking about the stock market.
They're too fun out there, right? Is that what you're getting at? Too much fun out there.
Honestly, my best, if I have to go to a game, I sit in the outfield. I think it's the best view. And I like to go. I'll tell you, the best seat at Great American is down the right field line.
Really?
Right there by that beer garden. Right by that beer garden, I think.
You talking above above the bullpen, or are you talking on the right side of the foul pole? You're talking about above the bullpen.
No, I'm talking a little bit up from the bullpen, but I like to stand. I can't just sit. I can't sit with someone next to me that I don't know. So I like to stand, and if you ever see me at a ball game, I'll be down the right field line, with the ham and eggers. But yeah, I think that's the best. The best. If you're going to watch a game, I think that's the best spot.
All right, fair enough. I'm going to leave you on this. Opening day is on Thursday. This will be the last time that we have this discussion before it's an official thing, and I'll leave you on this. The Reds over-under is set, I believe, at 66.5 or 67 games. They over or under?
Trace, I hate to be a Tom Brenneman and not give an opinion.
Oh,
but
no. I don't think that that's one of Tom Brenneman's weaknesses. I think he has opinions.
I know. I'm just messing. But I think this could be a really rough year. But can you please give me 1 week? Let me look at this team. Let me dissect this team. And remember this, I see things that you people don't see, but I'll be able to anticipate how many losses. I talked to someone the other day who has played the major leagues. He thinks they're going to lose 100 games.
Okay.
Hopefully they do not. Do you guys think they could lose 100?
Well, I think it all comes down to health. And at the end of the day, that is probably the only way, in my opinion, they could lose 100 games is their top 3 guys are good enough to not lose 100 games if they stay relatively healthy. Now, that's a big question mark, if we're being quite frank. 162 games is a really, really long season. It can become grueling. I don't know whether or not those top 3 starters, being as young as they are going to stay healthy all year. I don't know. We'll see. And I'm going to venture to say they're not going to lose 100 games. That seems it's very hard to lose 100 games, Tracy.
It's really hard. So to lose 100 games, you'd have to lose your best player. Oh, wait a minute, they did that. And you have to have the 4th and 5th starter. How's that looking? How's the bullpen looking? Is Senzel ever going to get on the field? I thought I was injury prone. I'm like friggin' Cal Ripken compared to that guy. He's always hurt. He just had a broken toe. How long does that take to fix?
I don't know. I feel not to be a pushover, but I do feel a little sorry for the guy. It seems like he can't ever figure it out and get over the hump, and he probably cares a lot. But at the end of the day, nobody really cares in the fandom or the front office of your feelings. So they're hoping.
Nobody cares that he cares. I don't care.
That is true. That is very much true. Any parting words for us before you go, Tracy Jones?
No, Paul, are you there today, or are you just silent?
I am. I'm here. I'm here and attentively listening to everything you have to say, Mr. Jones.
Nice contribution today, Paul. Boy, you came with your A game.
I really did.
Jackass.
and just like that. Well, I would assume at this point USA veteran would already have realized that things are off the deep end. Who knows what's going to happen when Tracy Jones comes on? But nonetheless, we made an oath.
You never know.
We made an oath to USA veteran today that we were going to keep it a kid-friendly show.
Actually, I do have one thing.
Go ahead.
Have one thing. Okay, Tracy, I'm glad you asked this. So Taylor Swift began her tour last week or the week before.
Yes.
And a raging topic of conversation among the people. I mean, I don't really follow this that closely, but from what I have seen, apparently the set list is 44 songs without a break. So everybody is asking, when do you take your bathroom break? And all these girls are like, well, you can't take a bathroom break during this concert. You know how much money you paid? You can't go get a drink. You can't go get a T-shirt. You can't go to the bathroom. And all the guys, all the boyfriends are like, you go to the bathroom whenever you want. There's nobody in there. So I am presenting to you from what you have presented to me for the last 3 months, a 44-song set list without a bathroom break is the only topic that I had that I've been meaning to bring up to you for the last week that I just haven't seen you.
Well, remember, you're getting rid of this girl that you've been dating for 5 years, right? We've already established that. And my point was, when there was a break, that you go to the bathrooms and get a bunch of girls' numbers, right? That was the whole plan. Now that she's going to play 44 songs, boy, I'd be asleep by that time. I'm going to have to think about this. You might have to wait till after the concert, or you could always maybe get some phone numbers before the concert. You know, if your girlfriend goes to the bathroom or something like that, put the move on some of these girls. There's going to be a lot of wool there. I can tell you that.
There's no doubt. There's 44 straight songs. That's quite the feat, too. I'm not sure how you could pull something like that off on a regular basis throughout an entire tour, but maybe she's made of something that none of us else are made of. I don't know. But
no, I watched the greatest. I watched the greatest band. Went to a concert, greatest band of all time, and they only played 12 songs, and that was Foreigner, greatest band of all time.
Well, if Casey was any fun, he'd probably play that on this show, but he's not.
Copyright.
Because of copyright. I don't know if you know, Tracy, but we play non-copyright songs anymore. And in fact, I'm gonna make you a promise, Tracy Jones. We're gonna find a way, at worst case, when we make some adjustments around here in the middle of the summer, we're gonna find some theme music for you. When you come on this show, we're gonna have a tune be played. But the problem is, Tracy, is that Mr. Corporate here doesn't want us to play copyrighted music because he's concerned about copyright laws, which maybe I should be, as the one that would probably take a huge financial hit. But my man over here is just playing tunes that you would listen to in an elevator.
Well, I do need some intro music. I've been asking for it for 7 months. And Casey, live a little. Live on the edge, will you please? Do something, I suppose you're one of those guys who always drives 55 miles an hour, right? You're one of those guys. We can get by. No one's going to find, Chatterbox. And if they do, Trace will pick it up.
Right. Well, I
Races
figure
make a lot of money.
yeah, a lot. I figure we'll just go bankrupt and then we'll start up a new LLC the next day. That's my thought.
A lot of companies do that. Too big to fail.
Too big to fail. All right, Tracy. Thank you for coming on, mucking it up with the Ham and Eggers. Tom will be back next week. We think he's in the DR, so maybe he decides that's a beautiful life to live down there, and he'll just stay there forever. Who knows?
We'll see. Boys, I'll talk to you on Thursday.
All right. Tracy Jones.
See you, Tracy.
All right, guys. We don't have a ton of time, theoretically, but I do want to do this segment because it'll be fun, and we'll rip through these pretty fast.
So I'm going to go back. I'm going to start from the bottom because the way Betfred lists it, it's each individual team. So what I'm going to do is the odds to win the fewest regular season games. I'm not going to give the total.
Right.
I'll just go from the bottom of the odds to win the fewest regular season games. Do you want me to give the team name? How did you want to do this?
You tell me the team, and I want the chat to have some fun, and they're going to guess where that specific team's stadium ranks in regards to the top Major League Baseball stadiums. So go for it.
Okay, there are two teams tied for the fewest wins this season, the Athletics and the Nationals.
All right, we'll start with the Athletics.
I'm going to say they are second to last.
Second to last. Casey has no clue on any of these stadiums is my best guess.
Yep.
I'm going to say that only Tampa Bay is worse than Oakland.
And you would be correct.
I am? Okay.
You would be
good.
correct. In fact, this is probably going to turn into Paul makes the quick guess, and we'll say over under. How many wins are the A's supposed to have?
I'm going to guess 59.5.
Well, you can tell us that. We don't have to turn that into.
Yeah. I just got to find it here.
So 59.5?
59.5. Yep.
I'm going to go with over 59.5 because it just seemed like an absurd amount of losses.
Nationals, I'll say they are 15th.
15th ranked Park. The Nationals. Boy, you guys are not going to be happy when you see what Great American Ballpark's ranked. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Oh, no.
They are. You're not going to be pleased. Can you give me the name of the field so I don't
Nationals Park.
Fly by it? Nationals Park. That's one.
Yeah, it's not corporate. We haven't sold out yet.
That seems like that's coming soon, though, right?
Yeah, they've been talking about it for a while. Kind of like Peugeot Stadium.
Nationals Park. I'm sorry, this isn't the best TV right now, but are they like really high?
Oh, they might be. I mean,
no,
it depends on the area around. It depends on when these rankings were done too.
Well, I flew right past it at some point. Go ahead and go to the next one. I'll find what number the what's their over under on the Nationals.
59.5.
I'm gonna take their.
I might go under.
I'm gonna go there under actually.
Yeah. Rockies.
The Rockies.
Their stadium's got to be top 5.
Their stadium is top 10.
8.
Their stadium, I just seen it. It is 6.
Ah, okay, close. Reds, 4th fewest.
What do you think? What do you think Great American Ballpark?
What
ranks?
is this rank? What site?
This is USA Today. And I cannot stand how they have it listed. I mean, one thing that really irritates me on the internet anymore is you can't just get a list. It's got to be a picture, a paragraph, a picture, a paragraph, a picture, a paragraph, and this shouldn't take me this long to scroll through a list. But Great American Ballpark, ranked in regards to stadiums in Major League Baseball, is not good.
21st?
25th.
25th?
That's not fair.
What are they ranking that based on?
They're saying they're just ranking it based off of their opinion. It says the location along the river is great, and we're always down for a little Big Red Machine history. Of course you are. Which comes via some great statues outside the park. Still, for whatever reason, it's always felt like there's a little something missing from Great American Ballpark, and that would put it in the upper echelon of ballparks. Really nice dynamite insight there from USA Today.
I mean, I could see where it's not top 10, but it's got to be like top 15. That's a nice
So
park.
To have some fun, we won't go through this whole entire thing because it'll become nauseating. But parks that are supposedly worse than Great American Ballpark.
Yeah.
Marlins Park.
Mm-hmm. All
right. Globe Life Field, which is the Texas Rangers Park.
Okay.
Rogers Center. The Rogers Center.
Yeah, that place stinks.
And then the last two that we've already talked about, the Oakland A's, Oakland Coliseum, and then I can confirm Tropicana Field is a turd.
Yeah, Globe Life is just a warehouse, so I'll give you that too.
So those are the only ones that are theoretically worse. Every other ballpark in Major League Baseball is better. I'll run through the rest of these parks just for fun really fast. Ready? Nationals Park was 24. That's why I missed it. I scrolled down way too fast.
Yeah, that's all right.
All right. And I actually thought their park was nice.
I mean,
I'll tell you this. I'm going to say this right now. If Great American Ballpark is the 25th worst stadium, if that's how we want to say it, and Nationals Park is the 24th worst stadium, that bodes really well for ballparks.
Yeah.
I mean, that means there's a lot of, whether it's beautiful or interactive or fun, whichever term you'd like to use in regards to what you enjoy in a ballpark, that excites me because I've not been to, I don't want to say many, I've not been to a plethora of these parks. But the idea that the parks that I have been to are really, really high on this list is relatively exciting. Nationals Park I thought it was beautiful.
Yeah, it's a nice park. The problem is I don't think there's anything like particularly special about it. I mean, I've been there more than I've been in any other stadium, and I just it's fine. I think what people got annoyed with when they built it was there was so much opportunity to, part of the thing was you could see the Capitol if you sat in the upper deck. Now you can't see that anymore. But there's really no chance the way that DC is laid out. There's really no chance that you get any kind of a great view. There's no real vantage point in DC where you're allowed to build a stadium that you get like a great skyline view. You maybe could have turned it the other way and had the Anacostia River in the background, but like that's nothing special. That's just the river, and it's not a great river, you know. So yeah.
The thing about, sorry, I hijacked the show here.
Yeah, that's all right.
Sorry about that. You guys talk baseball, and I can't stay away. The thing about MLB ballparks, and I've said this time and time before, is there are 30 ballparks. There are 28 good ballparks. There are 2 that are dog crap. There are 28 great ballparks. I have long told Cincinnati fans, people have said, like, it's a top 10 ballpark. It ain't a top 10 ballpark. It's a really nice ballpark about GABP. There are levels for MLB ballparks. There's the old stadiums that everyone loves, Fenway, Wrigley, Dodger. Then there's those really nice new stadiums, Camden, PNC Park, AT&T, I don't know what it's called, Oracle Park maybe, something like that.
Yeah.
Outside of those 6 stadiums I just named, there's like 22 stadiums that you could just interchange wherever you want. And the Reds fall well into that. National Park, Busch Stadium, Great American Ballpark, pretty much the exact same field, just in different cities. The one thing that Great American Ballpark does have, though, that I would challenge it against other ballparks, the food is bar none. Maybe that's just a Cincinnati boy talking about our food. But I truly feel like I go to other stadiums and they just have traditional hot dogs and stuff like that.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but they have Chick-fil-A now. That definitely adds to the idea of what you were saying.
And that goes back to the idea of what we're ranking this on, because like if you're ranking Nationals Park 5, 6, 7 years ago, there was nothing. It was a place where you went down there, you went to the game, and you got out of Dodge as fast as you could.
So there's nothing around there.
Now
there is.
Now they have built up an entire entertainment district around it, and it's become a spot where you're like, oh, Southeast DC, that's not a bad place. Whereas when I was growing up, going to the games, 2009, 2010, right when the stadium had been built, my dad worked at the Department of Transportation, which was right across the street, so we had free parking. You could just go park under the building and walk over. But if you weren't, like if I went with my friends and we took the Metro down or we parked in just Nationals Park parking, which was like $50 across the street, you went down there, you went to the game, and you got out of there because it was not a good area. Now they have built up apartments, hotels, bars, fun things around there that it's more entertaining.
Similar to what the Reds
Kind of
had.
like what the Reds did. It's not quite the Banks. It's not quite the destination thing in D.C., but I also haven't been there in the last 4 years enough to know where it's really grown up. I mean, the last time I was in D.C. for a Nationals game was, I think, might have been the year before COVID. So
they won.
Yeah. So, yeah.
They won that year.
Yeah. Yeah, that was –
2019?
Was that the World Series? No,
Yeah.
I mean, yes, 2019 was the World Series. Yeah, I just can't believe it's been that long. But, yeah. But that's where I say, like, if you're just ranking on the vantage point, like, it could have been cool. if Great American was built facing the city skyline,
right, like PNC Park,
PNC Park,
but you lose the river.
Cool. They chose the river, but you don't even see the river unless you're sitting up high enough to be up there to see it. So,
understand.
There's no cutout. It would have been kind of cool if there was a cutout in the outfield stands, or somewhere that you could maybe see the river or something to give it that flavor. Whereas if you just sit in the lower bowl, if you pay $10 and sit behind the dugout, you don't get much flavor to Great American Ballpark. But the food, the outside entertainment,
it's in downtown
accessibility.
Trace has been to Kaufman.
I drove
in Kansas
by
City. And it is a gorgeous stadium. Absolutely stunning. It's one of the old ones. It's 60, 70 years old now. But there's just nothing around it. It's a big, giant parking lot. So you go to the game, you leave. That's all it is, just like you mentioned with Nationals Park. And that's why they're going to knock it down. They're going to tear
They're tearing Kaufman down?
Yeah, they're building inside KC, inside the city.
Oh, really?
Just as every other team has done. And you've got to wonder, Dodger Stadium's kind of on the outskirts of L.A.
I've heard bad. Yeah, Dodger Stadium is. I had a friend that went there not too long ago, and I was hearing that it was, traffic's terrible. Just ingress and egress at the stadium with you guys talking about at Arrowhead.
Yeah, Arrowhead was the only negative thing I have to say about Arrowhead is that it genuinely was absolutely disgusting to try to get out of there. Now, you could try to beat the rush, certainly, but if you get stuck in Arrowhead's parking lot in the way in which we got stuck in the parking lot, it's miserable. Let me run through this list here really quickly, and we'll wrap this show up. I'm going to start from the best to the worst. Oracle Park, they have number 1. Excuse me, I lied. Petco Park, they have number 1, San Diego. Number 2, they have Oracle Park and San Francisco. 3, PNC Park that I've not been to. I'm going to make an effort to go to there this year. It's just such an easy drive from here that it seems like that's something that one should do if you're from Cincinnati or live near Cincinnati. Wrigley Field they have as 4. Dodger Stadium they have as 5. Dodger Stadium is actually Tom's favorite stadium. I've actually asked him that before, and maybe he's mentioned that on air or not.
I love Dodger Stadium.
But Tom's favorite stadium is Dodger Stadium. Coors Field is 6. Fenway Park is 7. Target Field is 8. Target Field is the Twins for those that aren't paying attention. I'm going to try to keep saying the team name for those that might not know these things. T-Mobile Park is the Seattle Mariners at 9. Citi Field, the New York Mets, is the 10th ranked ballpark. I don't know.
Where does the Angels?
I don't know. We'll get there. Camden Yards is 11. That is the Baltimore Orioles.
The reason I don't like Camden is because Camden was the leading edge of the new architecture.
That's
of
why
Major
everyone
League
is built the way that they have.
Yeah, Camden was the
first of its kind.
It was the first to break away from the cookie cutter circular ballpark. But what they didn't do at Camden, which is annoying, is you can't see the game from the concourse. So when you go back up into the concourse to buy your food or anything, you have to walk down the tunnels to get to your seat. Whereas if you go to the Reds or some of these more modern ballparks, you're buying your food, you're getting your nachos, you have standing room seats, whatever. You can see the game from every single vantage point of the stadium, whereas there, it is an experience to go out, get your food, and then get back to your seat.
Fair. I have not been there. Like I said, I made the mistake of deciding I was too lazy to go there last year when I had an opportunity, and I just didn't have it in me to go down there. But I'll make it back maybe eventually, God willing. So Truist Park, Atlanta is 12. Busch Stadium is 13, St. Louis Cardinals. Citizens Bank Park, Philadelphia, is 14. 15, the average or middle of the road, they actually have on this list Nationals Park. So this is a little bit of a different park that I snagged here really quickly. Kauffman Stadium is 16 in Kansas City. 17 is Minute Maid Park, that's a stadium that I feel like I would be interested to see. It's just unique. It's a small little porch out and left. They got rid of the hill out in center field that is a little bit of a travesty. I like that hill with the pole. It added a whole nice dimension to the game. Globe Life Field for the Texas Rangers is at 18. Progressive Field. That's an underrated ballpark, I feel like. Cleveland Guardians at 19. 20 is where Great American Ballpark is ranked in this list. 21, Comerica Park. 22, Lone Depot Park, Miami Marlins. 23, Chase Field in Arizona. Wow. 24 is the American Family Field in the Milwaukee Brewers. I liked the Brewers field. 24 seems high. 25 is Yankee Stadium, and I've seen that on a few lists. I don't know if that's just because people are upset that they rebuilt Yankee Stadium and they wanted to have the nostalgia to it. Maybe they didn't do it right. I will read you quickly what they say about it. It says the Yankees replaced old Yankee Stadium with a soulless corporate replica. It's wild how $2.3 billion can buy you such a boring baseball venue. That's harsh words. I don't know. That also could be an old school Yankee fan that's writing this article. It's absolutely pissed that they tore down the old one and they just begrudgingly put it at 25. Angel Stadium seems wild at 26. Then you got the Rogers Center, and then you got Guaranteed Park, which is Chicago White Sox. Yes. Tropicana Field at 29, and believe it or not, they actually have the Ring Central Coliseum of the Oakland A's last in this list.
Like I said, there's 6 or 7 absolutely stunning ballparks. There's 22 that are all good. They're all good. Even U.S. Cellular, Comiskey Park, whatever the White Sox call their field now, is still a nice field, and it's the 28th.
Petco is really nice out in San Diego.
That was number one.
Awesome.
That was number one.
Gaslamp District right across the street. There's a lot to do. It's a great area all over the stadium. It's really nice.
I don't know what they've done in San Diego to promote this, but they've found a way to be able to make baseball like energetic. And their atmospheres at the Padres games, I don't know if it's the in-house team that started this. I don't know if it's the winning baseball that started it. I'm sure it's a combination of both. And you got some fun players. Maybe Tatis Jr. is a part of that, and obviously Machado and those guys. But I was watching a game last year randomly, and it wasn't a major game. It wasn't a big game. But the atmosphere looked like it was electric in like the 7th or 8th inning. And I don't know if they just turned that into a party. That's one thing from the Reds' perspective. That could be it too. But there's one thing from the Reds' perspective, and I see people in the chat, a little bit dissing on Great American Ballpark. I don't mind Great American. I think they've actually made Great American. They've made really good upgrades to Great American throughout the years. There's no question about it. When it first came open to now, it's significantly better than it was. But the in-house entertainment, the sound effects they use, and all the things they did for the longest time were so tired and so like just old school that it's like we need to come up with some better, quote unquote, like entertainment perhaps than what we've been doing. Now to be fair, I did not get a chance to go last year, so maybe it's changed. But
my father watches this streaming on our smart TV. He does not watch it to comment in the chat, so he texted me and just wants everybody to know that list is, quote, bogus.
I love it. Well, it's not our list.
It's not our list.
Just a list from the USA Today. My guess is that you and your old man might be getting that newspaper in the mail today.
Oh, probably.
I mean,
it
seems like right up your alley.
It was a squirrel that chewed through our internet line. Had to replace the whole thing. Squirrel knocked us out.
Damn squirrels.
Knocked us out.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And that's what happened to us today, believe it or not. We had some internet issues. We were buffering from time to time. Turns out there was a squirrel right outside the office.
We might have a bird in here somewhere.
Yeah. In fact, that is the new thing. Casey McAllister swears up and down that there is a bird that has lived inside of this office at some point because he sees it flying through there, but no one else sees it. So Casey's maybe crazy. Maybe he's not.
Sir Boy
I know.
Wonder.
I know. I don't have the chat in front
Make
of me.
some noise! Make noise!
Oh my God!
Make some noise!
Make noise!
Sir Boy, thank you. It's for the longest time, it's terrible. I mean, it's so bad that you wonder, like, does anybody even care about this? Like, I can't believe we're still doing this. There's more of them I know. Like, there was one that was like, let's go Reds. It's like, what are we doing here?
Cincinnati, Ohio.
I can get behind that a little bit.
It's a great song.
But I can't get behind the, like the old school, hit the sound pad and let it play, and nobody really cares about the stupid chant that you're trying to get us to say anyways. Like, why don't you play some music that's going to get the vibes high?
Wrigley still has an organist.
Well, that's like old school. I get the concept of that, but the thing that you just did, which I don't
Make some noise.
Make some noise. Make noise.
I like the ghost
brutal.
graphic. Walks will haunt.
Yeah. Did they still do that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They did.
Because it was on the old light bright from the old stadium.
Correct. That's where they got that from.
Yeah.
Well, if we did anything today, hopefully we got your excitement a little bit peaked for baseball in general. And
pitch the people on what we're doing this week.
Let's pitch the people. Tomorrow we will be back here better than ever, same place. But Thursday, I must remind you that we will be down at Moorline. Considering that Reed Mouse is not a fan of the Cincinnati Reds, we're going to maybe make him work while the rest of us sneak into the ball game. Who knows? I don't know if I'm going to go in or not, but that's beside the point. The main point is if you're going to be down around the stadium, come see us. We're going to be at Moorline, Lager House. We're going to do the show live from 10 to noon. We also have a big show on the eve of opening day, which is tomorrow night, with none other than Nick Kirby. He is going to be in the house in studio. And he has some major guests. I don't want to spoil those guests for you, but keep an eye out for it. And we're going to have some fun and try to get people excited for some baseball nonetheless. Because at the end of the day, I am excited about that. I am excited to go to the ballpark and just enjoy a nice hot dog. Or as Tom would come to find out, a glizzy.
A glizzy.
And I will not be doing the 9 hot dog and 9 beer challenge. That is not up to my standards of being able to even come close to completing. If I had to eat 9 hot dogs, I don't know if I could do it in 9 days. I like hot dogs, but 9 hot dogs in one game is just wild.
I'm hoping we get a good Chatterbox turnout. I was bummed I missed the March Madness Day, get to meet some people, so hopefully some of the chat makes it down to Moorline.
Yeah. Well, the fact that they didn't get to see you, Paul, I'm sure they'll be coming out in droves.
Oh, yeah,
and they certainly will. I mean,
there
was a lot of people disappointed that Paul Fritzner was not.
That's the driver.
Big problem, Paul. Big league, Paul.
Big draw, Paul.
Big draw, BD.
We all know that's what they say.
BD Paul.
All right, we have more things to do today, as I know that you probably do as well. But for as many of you that come in here and have fun with us every single day, we always want to say thank you. We appreciate it. Please like the stream, share the stream. And again, we will be back tomorrow with hopefully, probably, a better show than we had today. That's our promise to you. Until then, take care of yourselves and just stay off of Red's Twitter, especially if Reed Mouse is involved. Take care, everybody.